Chapter 1678. The Dean was young once, and she had her own love. Naturally, she encouraged Xiaoke to pursue her own happiness. Xiaoke felt embarrassed when the Dean saw through her thoughts. Chino pop-up window. Haha. Is it that Linny? The Dean smiled. Why hasn't he come recently? It's not him. Xiaoke shook her head. Although Lin Yi helped her a few times, she didn't have the same feelings towards Lin Yi as she did towards the male thief. Plus, Lin Yi was an annoying person. How could he say that someone else's martial arts were useless? How infuriating. Oh, it's not him? That's... Before the old Dean could finish his words, someone rushed into the room. Dean, Manager Lee from Chibing Real Estate is here. He said that he wants to discuss the relocation of our orphanage. Ken walked in and said to the Dean, "Oh, why are they here again?" The Dean frowned. She didn't expect that the people from Chibing Real Estate would come to her door again. Xiaoke, rest first. I'll go with Ken. Dean, do you need me to go with you? Xiaoke was worried when she heard that the people from Chibing Real Estate were here. Master Bing said that if the orphanage didn't agree to the relocation, he would teach the orphanage a lesson. It's useless even if you go. The old Dean waved his hand and said, "Your strength is too weak. If they want to make a move, it will be futile even if you go. If they negotiate peacefully, then you won't be able to make the decision even if you go. It's better for you to rest. This period of time has been enough for you." All right then. Xiaoke didn't force it. After all, the Dean was telling the truth. Xiaoke wasn't good at negotiating. What if she said something she shouldn't and made both parties unhappy? Dean and Ken walked out of Xiaoke's room, and she turned on the TV casually. She was about to change the channel when she heard a piece of news on the TV. What's going on? This is Songshan News Bulletin. We're broadcasting an important piece of news. Under the heavy assault of our city's police force, we've arrested the grave robbers couple, James Grave Robber Gang, Old Hay Grave Robber Gang, and a few other grave robbers gang members. They're currently being held at the detention center. This case will be heard in XX City's court tomorrow. The criminals will be escorted to XX City's detention center tonight. Due to the large number of criminals, this section will be temporarily closed at 10 p.m. for half an hour. Drivers, please avoid this time period or take a detour. Xiaoke didn't hear the rest of the news, but she did hear that the tomb robbers couple had been caught in one fell swoop. Did that mean that the male thief had also been caught? Xiaoke didn't know if there was some kind of internal conflict between the grave robbers, or else why would so many of them be caught at the same time? But no matter what the reason was, Xiaoke didn't care. What she cared about was the male thief. The male thief was caught, and he was going to be sent to the court tomorrow. Xiaoke stood up abruptly, pacing around the room in panic. If the case really went to court, with the amount of money that the male thief had stolen, he could be sentenced to life imprisonment or even death. How could Xiaoke watch the man she loved die? But what could Xiaoke do? She could only watch the news. She didn't know who to ask. The first person she thought of was Lingshan, but she never got along with Lingshan. What if she got caught before she could find out anything? That wouldn't be worth it. What should she do? Rob the execution field. A scene from a TV show popped up in Xiaoke's mind. This thought scared Xiaoke herself, but as soon as the idea popped up, Xiaoke couldn't help but want to do it. She had no other choice. Although this decision was very dangerous, and she might die a horrible death, Xiaoke didn't regret it. If it weren't for the male thief, she would have died a long time ago. Now that he was caught, he might be sentenced to death as well. Xiaoke thought that since they couldn't be together in life, they might as well die together. Love always made people impulsive, and although impulsiveness was the devil, Xiaoke couldn't stop herself from doing it. But if she died, what would happen to the children in the orphanage? With that thought, Xiaoke hesitated again. She liked the male thief, and she wanted to sacrifice herself for love, but the children in the orphanage were behind her. It was an invisible mission and responsibility, and she had to think about the children's future before she did it. On one side was love and loyalty, and on the other side was the children in the orphanage. This was the first time Xiaoka was in a dilemma. She had never liked anyone before, and she put all her heart and soul into the children in the orphanage. But this time, she had the shadow of the male thief in her heart. But if she didn't take care of the male thief's safety, she would feel guilty for the rest of her life. She remembered that the headmaster said that the money she got from robbing the tombs would be enough for the orphanage's future expenses. Xiaoka let out a sigh of relief. Xiao Ken was all grown up now, so she should let him take care of the orphanage. She didn't need to do dangerous things anymore, and she only needed him to take care of the children. This way, Xiaoka could die in peace. Even if she died, she wouldn't have to worry about anything. With that thought, Xiaoka made her decision. She would talk to Xiao Ken later and let him take care of the orphanage. Then she would carry out her big plan. Tsihua's main purpose for coming to the orphanage this time was to scare the orphanage into moving, but the dean was adamant about it. They could move, but they had to replace it with a ready-made orphanage that they could use. The land alone was out of the question. The orphanage wasn't a real estate company, so what was the use of land? As a result, the negotiations didn't go smoothly at all. Tsihua, on the other hand, left some harsh words before he left. Dean, I'd advise you to agree to our company's proposal. Otherwise, humph, you'll end up with nothing in the end. You don't even have this condition. Tsihua said. The headmaster didn't reply to Tsihua's words. He had the strength of a golden class, but because of his severe internal injuries, he couldn't even use half of his strength. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1679. Besides, Tsihua had made it clear that they had an earth class. If he didn't know what was good for him, then the consequences would be very serious. In fact, the old director also wanted to find a quieter place to rebuild an orphanage, but rebuilding the orphanage required funds, and it was not something that could be achieved with just a thought. To be honest, if Tsihua found a secluded piece of land and built an orphanage on it, and so did the dean, they would agree to the exchange. The position was of no use to these children, and the old dean hoped that these children would, living a better life. Takitra, however, a piece of land was completely useless to the old dean. Even so, the old dean knew that he had no choice but to accept it. If they persisted, they might anger Tsihua and Zhao Qibing. What would they do then? Things might not necessarily turn out that way. In order not to worry Xiaoka, the dean didn't tell her about this. She was the one who was responsible for this. He was talking to Tsihua alone. Not even Ken knew about it. At this moment, Ken had been called back by Xiaoka and was making arrangements for his funeral. Xiao Ken, you've grown up. I'll leave the orphanage to you in the future. You'll help the orphanage. Boss, take care of everything, Xiaoka said solemnly to Xiao Ken. Ken was a little muddled. He didn't know what was going on when Xiaoka suddenly called him here. Xiaoka's straightforward words confused him. Sister Xiaoka, I've been assisting you all along. Are you and the old director managing the orphanage? Yes, but from now on, it's just you. Xiaoka sighed. Xiao Yao, you're the only one, but I might not be able to help you anymore. Ah, Sister Xiao Ke, are you leaving the orphanage? Xiao Ken was stunned. You are going to marry? Where is he? When Xiao Ken said this, he was a little disappointed. Yu Xiao was an older boy, the goddess in their hearts, but she was just a goddess. They didn't dare to do anything to Yu Xiaoka. Divide and think. Holy Church, more or less. Xiaoka nodded. You have to promise Xiaoka sis that you'll do it in the future. Take care of your brothers and sisters in the orphanage. Okay, big sister Xiao Ke, will you come back often? Xiao Ken was a little reluctant. I might not be able to come back. Xiaoka sighed and decided to tell the truth. Xiao Ken had grown up, and he was a sensible child. Most importantly, he was a loyal child. Son, you know how to repay kindness. So if Xiaoka told him, he'd probably understand her feelings. Can't come back? What do you mean? Ken felt that something was wrong with Xiaoka. He asked, Sister Xiaoka, what are you trying to say? Why does it look like you're going to the execution ground? Ken was just joking, but he didn't expect that he would hit the mark. It's about the same. Xiaoka nodded and said, Ken, Xiaoka sis. This time, I'm actually going to save someone. Save someone? Who does Sister Xiaoka want to save? Ken asked curiously. A person who treats Big Sister Xiaoka very well. Big Sister Xiaoka also likes him very much. He is Big Sister Xiaoka, the prince on a white horse in my heart, Xiaoka said, as she started to explain everything in detail. She told Ken everything. Once more, she didn't tell the dean about these things back then. Xiaoka purposely hid the ambiguous feelings between her and the male thief. But now, she didn't hide it from Ken. She put it in her heart. She told Ken all the things that she had been holding back for a long time. This time, Xiaoka had made up her mind. There was no turning back, so the details of the matter were clear. She had to explain everything clearly. Ah, Sister Xiaoka, you're going to the execution ground? You don't want to live anymore? Ken's eyes widened. Even if the male thief helped you before, you can't do something stupid like this. If you go, you'll be able to come back? Really? Not only won't you be able to save him, but you'll also die. I've thought about this a long time ago. Xiaoka shook her head helplessly. I know. With my current strength, it's extremely hard to save someone, but if I don't go, I'll never be able to get over it. If I don't go, I'll never be able to get over it. If I die, then so be it. I like him, and I'll die for him. I'm willing. Ken, you're still young. You don't know what it's like to love someone. Who says I don't understand? Ken's face turned red, and he hurriedly said, I like Sister Xiaoka. I don't want to let her go. Go and die. This isn't the same. You laughed. Ken, your liking is just a form of worship. After I leave, you will be the backbone of the orphanage. Those children will love you and respect you, worship you. Now that everything in the orphanage has been stabilized, I can leave in peace. Ken knew Xiaoka's personality. She was a very stubborn and strong-willed person. What had been decided would be done. But Ken really didn't want Xiaoka to die. She was destined to never return. So she said, Sister Xiaoka, isn't your boyfriend Big Brother Lin? How did he fall in love with someone else? Brother Lin is so good. Why do you have to like a nobody? Meow's male thief? Lin, that's just a misunderstanding. Xiaoka shook her head. There's nothing between us. Lin is a good person, but he always looks down on me. I don't have any feelings for him. But men. Robber is different. I like him. Sister Xiaoka, have you spoken to the dean? Ken really had no choice. She could only bring up the dean's name, hoping that the dean would stop Xiaoka and not let her go. Do something stupid. Don't tell the old dean about this. I'll leave her a letter, and you can pass it to her for me. Xiaoka sighed. She knew that the dean loved her as if she was his own daughter. Therefore, if the old dean knew about this, he would definitely take the risk with him. But Xiaoka didn't want the dean to take the risk with her, so she decided to leave first. Orphanage site, Ken could replace him, but OL president absolutely couldn't be without him. So Xiaoka said to Ken seriously, Ken, you are the oldest and the most sensible one. If the old dean finds out about this, she will definitely accompany me. She was the most sensible one. If the old dean knew about this, she would definitely accompany me. If there's danger, will you let her go? But Ken knew that Xiaoka was telling the truth after hearing her words. This made Ken hesitate. He was in a difficult position. On one hand, he didn't want Xiaoka to take the risk. On the other hand, he knew Xiaoka's personality. Once she decided to do something, she would do it no matter how hard it was. Target =_blank. Chapter 1680. No buts. Shao Ken, promise me that you'll take good care of the kids in the orphanage. Okay? Xiaoka stared at Shao Ken without blinking. Okay. Shao Ken had no choice but to nod under Xiaoka's gaze. I'll try my best. But Xiaoka sis, you have to be careful. If you can't do it, don't do it. Just do it. Ha! There's a type of love called going through life and death together. And there's a type of love called risking one's life. Shao Ken laughed. But Xiaoka sis, you and that male thief. There's no love, Shao Ken tried to persuade Xiaoka. There's a type of love called love at first sight. And there's a type of love called moths flying into flames, Xiaoka said. She said, although it was only for a short moment, it was engraved in my heart. At that moment, his love for me was deeply engraved in my heart. His love for me at that moment is something I'll never forget. Shao Ken looked at Xiaoka, not knowing what to say. He didn't know how to say it. He knew that no matter what he said, Xiaoka would do it. There was no point in saying it. Don't frown. Without Xiaoka sis, you'll be the big brother of the orphanage from now on. You need to take care of your brothers and sisters. What do you look like now? Xiaoka laughed. Don't let me leave in peace. Okay. Shao Ken nodded helplessly. Then, when are you leaving? Tonight at 10. It's 7 now. I should be leaving. Xiaoka said, there's still some distance from XX Detention Center. There's still some distance to the XX Detention Center. So I have to make preparations in advance. And so, Xiaoka left a letter in front of Shao Ken and left the orphanage. Shao Ken took Xiaoka's letter. Xiaoka told him to give it to the old house tomorrow. Elder, don't give it to the dean right after she leaves. The dean will catch up to her if that happens. Things will become more troublesome. What should I do? What should I do? Shao Ken didn't want anything to happen to Xiaoka, but with his abilities he couldn't stop or help Xiaoka. He didn't know martial arts, so he wouldn't be able to help Xiaoka even if he went. He was busy, but he couldn't trouble the dean. Suddenly, Shao Ken had a flash of inspiration. He thought of someone. Perhaps this person could help Xiaoka. This person was Lin Yi, the man Ken had mistaken for Xiaoka's boyfriend, his Xiaoka sis, husband. But from the looks of it, that didn't seem to be the case. But that was not important. What was important was that Lin Yi seemed to be very good at martial arts, tall, very powerful. If he could help Sister Xiaoka, then Sister Xiaoka would win. The odds should be quite high. The problem was, would Lin Yi help Xiaoka? Ken was hesitant. She asked Lin Yi for help, but not only did Lin Yi refuse to help, he even leaked the information to the police. That would be even more dangerous. But Ken remembered that Yu Xiaoxiao had been injured by Ling Shan last time, and it was Lin Yi who had saved her. If he wanted to tell Ling Shan about Xiaoka, he would have told her already. He wouldn't have waited until now. Therefore, Shao Ken was relieved again. He had Lin Yi's number in his hands. Lin Yi had left it for him last time. He didn't think that he would actually need it. Lin Yi had just sent Tang Yun, Mr. Tang, Mrs. Tang, and Xiao Ming back to House Tang's new house. He drove back to House Chu's villa, telling Meng Yao and Yushu about what happened at House Tang. Suddenly, his phone rang. Lin Yi thought that it was Tang Yun, but the number on the phone was unfamiliar. It was an existing number in the phone book, a local landline number in Songshan. Hello? Lin Yi picked up. Hello. The other side was silent for a while before saying, hello. Who are you looking for? What's the matter? The other side didn't say anything. Lin Yi didn't know what was going on. How strange. In fact, Shao Ken was organizing his words. He called Lin Yi out of impulse, but he didn't know how to tell Lin Yi about this. I'm Shao Ken. Shao Ken said carefully. Do you remember me? Shao Ken? Oh, I remember you. You're the kid from the orphanage, right? Lin Yi pondered for a while and remembered Shao Ken. He remembered Ken, the boy who worshipped Xiaoka, a little. It's me. It's me. Xiao Ken heard that Lin Yi remembered him and was happy. You're sometimes now? Sometimes. Now? What's the matter? Lin Yi paused and asked. It was almost night time. It was 8 o'clock. What could Xiao Ken be looking for him at this time? Plus, it wasn't Xiaoka who was looking for him. Usually, Xiaoka would be the one who contacted him about the orphanage. But Xiao Ken calling him meant that he was looking for him behind Xiaoka's back. This made Lin Yi confused. And I have something important to talk to you about. Can I see you? It's urgent, Xiao Ken said with certainty. Okay, where are you? I'll come to you now. Lin Yi hesitated and agreed. He had a good impression of Xiao Ken, so if Xiao Ken asked him for help, it wouldn't be very troublesome. He'd still agree to help if it wasn't something too troublesome. I'm at the orphanage, Xiao Ken said. Then I'll wait for you in the alley in front of the orphanage. I want to see you alone. All right, I'll head over now. Lin Yi nodded, feeling more and more excited after hearing what Ken said. He was sure that Xiao Ken was contacting him behind Xiaoka's back. After hanging up, Yushu asked, Shield bro, it's so late. Are you going out? And I have something to do. Xiao Ken from the orphanage is looking for me. It seems urgent. Lin Yi said, Oh, then come back early. Big sis Yao Yao and I are getting excited listening to it. You used the rising dragon fist. How badly did you beat that blue-haired guy? Yushu was getting anxious. I'll tell you guys when I get back. Lin Yi stood up with a smile, picking up his car keys. He picked up the car key and walked out of the mansion. Lin Yi planned to ask Faubert about martial arts. Jiao Yazi didn't know anything. The only person Lin Yi could ask was Faubert. Faubert used to be an Earth-class master. He must have some understanding of martial arts. It was his fault. He didn't understand the Earth class before, and he didn't know that the Earth class was a dividing line. It was the beginning of the path to a higher level. He thought it was the same as the Mystic and Golden class. He only used chi and punches to fight the enemy. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1681. After getting in the car, Lin Yi went directly to the orphanage. In the alley of the orphanage, Lin Yi saw a young man with a strange face. His face was anxious as he looked left and right, waiting for Lin Yi's Xiao Ken. Did you wait too long? Let's talk in the car. Lin Yi drove the car to Xiao Ken's side. He said, Brother Lin Yi, you're here. Xiao Ken's face lit up when he saw Lin Yi. She quickly got into Lin Yi's car. After Xiao Ken got in the car, Lin Yi parked the car in the roadside parking space, then said to Xiao Ken, Can you say it now? Why are you looking for me so urgently? And Xiao Ken quickly nodded. Brother Lin Yi, something happened to Sister Xiao Ke. Can you help her? Help her? Little Ke, what happened to her? Lin Yi was stunned after hearing Xiao Ken's words. Lin Yi hadn't seen Xiaoka for a long time after the tomb raid, but he still felt a little nervous. At this moment, Yu Xiaoka's cute and shy face appeared clearly in front of Lin Yi. It was as if the moment Xiaoka spoke her mind happened yesterday, and he could still remember it vividly. Yeah, right. He had developed a slight liking for the girl, but the two of them were destined to never cross paths again. His identity had already become a part of history, and he would never appear in front of the world again. Hearing that Xiaoka was in trouble, Lin Yi's heart tightened. He still cared about her. Although the sanctuary, however, just like Yuning's eagle at that time, the male thief also had a different identity. This was one of Lin Yi's identities. Sister Xiao Ke is going to rob the execution ground. Can you help her? Otherwise, she won't be able to return. Xiao Ken said anxiously. Rob the execution ground? Lin Yi was stunned. Rob, what execution ground? Don't tell me you've watched too many dramas? No, it's like this. Xiao Ken didn't dare to hide anything and told Xiaoka everything. He relayed what he said to Lin Yi. Xiao Ken had a good memory and almost didn't miss a word. He told Lin Yi, "What? You're saying that Yu Xiaoke is going to save the male thief?" Lin Yi's eyes widened. He didn't know what to say. However, Xiaoke's words made Lin Yi's heart sour. There is a kind of love called going through thick and thin together, regardless of personal safety. Love at first sight, like a moth flying into a flame. This was the love between Xiaoke and the male thief. The two had gone through life and death together in the tomb. Robber's protection made Xiaoke fall in love with him at first sight, which was why she was throwing herself at him like a moth. Fire. She knew she couldn't do it, but she still did it. This was proof of Xiaoke's thoughts. "Yeah, big brother Linny, can you help her?" Xiao Ken was a little worried. He was afraid that Linny would also. He liked Yu Xiaoke, but he knew that Yu Xiaoke would be unhappy if she liked someone else, so he just left her alone. But she couldn't lie to Lin Yi either. "This silly girl is really—" Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "Rob the execution ground? She thought it was ancient. What about TV dramas? Easy for you to say. Yeah, then, what should we do?" Xiao Ken didn't know what Linny really meant, so he could only keep quiet. She asked, "All right, leave it to me. I'll go help her. However, don't tell anyone about me helping her. I may help her secretly." Linny pondered for a moment and said to Xiao Ken, okay." Xiao Ken was stunned. What does Linny mean? Doing a good deed without leaving your name? Or actually, he liked Sister Xiaoke too. He didn't want Sister Xiaoke to know that he was helping Sister Xiaoke to save Brother Xiaoke. Love rival? But no matter what, it was a good thing that Lin Yi agreed. Xiao Ken's request to Lin Yi, he agreed without hesitation. "All right, then it's settled." Lin Yi said, "Go back. I'll definitely let Sister Xiaoke return to the orphanage safely." "All right, it's settled then." Lin Yi couldn't just ignore this matter. Yu Xiaoke went to save the male thief, but the male thief still died. Lin Yi, the real male thief, died a long time ago. What was the point of saving him? The people locked up in the detention center were the couple's accomplices. The news didn't explain it in detail. After letting Xiao Ken get out of the car, Linny didn't go straight to the detention center. Instead, he went home first. From the warehouse, he took out the male thief's mask and rushed to the detention center. Near the detention center, Lin Yi put on the male thief's mask. After parking the car, he put on the male thief's mask and got out of the car. Linny had the experience of being an assassin before, so it was easy for him to know where to hide in a terrain. Hiding and observing movements were Lin Yi's expertise. According to Lin Yi's initial observation, he quickly confirmed that there were two possible locations for Yu Xiaoke to hide in. Two possible locations for Yu Xiaoke to hide in. Lin Yi speculated based on his own situation. If he were Yu Xiaoke, where would he hide? Therefore, he easily came to these two conclusions. Yu Xiaoke hid on the right side of the detention center, on top of a big tree. This was a good hiding spot. The lush branches and leaves could not only hide from the surveillance cameras, but also allow Yu Xiaoke to easily see the movements in front of the detention center. But even so, Yu Xiaoke was still very depressed, because when Yu Xiaoke arrived here, she felt that she was very small. Just now, there were already more than 10 police cars entering the detention center, and there were also fully armed. Just now, there were already more than 10 police cars entering the detention center, and there were also fully armed cars leading the way. In this situation, Yu Xiaoke wanted to rely on her own strength to steal away one person. That was simply a pipe dream. Not to mention the fully armed escort team. Even if Yu Xiaoke could hide from these eyes, and chase, it would be extremely difficult to find the car with the male thief in it. Finding the car with the male thief in it out of so many cars was an extremely difficult task. She couldn't just open every car to take a look, right? If that happened, Yu Xiaoke would have been caught or beaten to death. Sigh. This is so depressing. Yu Xiaoke, that Linny was right about you. Your skills are really mediocre. You really hate yourself when you're weak. Yu Xiaoka muttered to herself. She said, if you know that you're weak, you can just fight more normally. A low voice came from behind Yu Xiaoka. It was a low male voice. It's not that easy, Jie. Yu Xiaoka replied, subconsciously, but she was shocked. He was startled and nearly fell from the tree. Why was there someone talking? Wasn't she the only one on the tree? Since when was there another person? What? Xiaoka turned around in fear, only to see a masked man. But this masked man didn't scare Yu Xiaoka anymore. Instead, Yu Xiaoka was surprised and happy. You, me what? Lin Yi asked. Shouldn't you be in there? Yu Xiaoka pointed at the guard, not far away. So, she rubbed her eyes in surprise and looked at Lin Yi again. Am I mistaken? You're really a male thief? Target equals _blank. Chapter 1682. Does the flying sparrow have amnesia and forgot about me so quickly? Lin Yi joked. Why would I go there? Didn't they say that the gang of the burglar couple had been wiped out? Xiaoka could confirm after hearing Lin Yi's words that the person in front of her was the male thief she liked. Let's not talk about me first. What are you doing here? Lin Yi asked. No pop-up window, Chi. I'm just here to take a look. Xiaoka's face reddened. She didn't dare to say that she was here to rob the execution ground. That would be too arrogant. What are you looking at? You heard that I was caught, and you want to save me? Lin Yi looked at Xiaoka with a smile that wasn't a smile, but with the mask on, Xiaoka couldn't see Lin Yi's expression. Xiaoka's face reddened even more as Lin Yi hit the nail on the head. I just wanted to see if there was a way. Then why did you come here? I heard that you wanted to save me, so I came to save you. Lin Yi said honestly, don't do something like this next time. I'm fine. Don't worry. I'm nervous. Xiaoka wasn't convinced by Lin Yi's words. You save me every time. I want to do something for you. Go take care of the orphanage. The children there need you. Don't do something like this again. I just happened to know this time. And if I didn't come, the consequences would be unimaginable. Lin Yi said, don't do something so impulsive in the future. Then you didn't appear after that, and I couldn't contact you. Xiaoka looked at Lin Yi and said stubbornly, if you visit me every once in a while, then I won't come anymore, right? Lin Yi looked at Xiaoka, speechless. Xiaoka's request really put Lin Yi in a difficult position. If it weren't for the fact that he had no other choice, Lin Yi wouldn't have picked up the identity of the male thief and appeared in front of Xiaoka. The male thief was a thing of the past. He was a fragment of Xiaoka's memory, a memory that would never appear again. However, Lin Yi had no choice but to appear. Lin Yi didn't want to appear in front of Xiaoka as Lin Yi. He couldn't just run over and tell Xiaoka that he was the male thief and that the male thief was fine, right? Not only would that ruin Xiaoka's beautiful dream, but it would also bring him trouble. Xiaoka seemed to be unhappy with Lin Yi, so Lin Yi thought about it for a long time and decided to use the identity of the male thief to persuade Xiaoka. It was more convincing, and this was also why he told Ken to keep it a secret. Otherwise, if Xiaoka went back and Ken said that he was the one who looked for him, with Xiaoka's intelligence, she wouldn't be able to figure out the connection. I can't appear. Lin Yi sighed and rejected Xiaoka's suggestion. I have my own life. In this world, other than the identity of the male thief, I have another identity. I've already washed my hands of the male thief identity, and I don't want to break my peaceful life. Then, can you tell me who you are in real life? Xiaoka asked carefully. We only met in the tomb, and the one you like is the male thief in the tomb. It's not the me in real life. Lin Yi said, if you knew who I am in real life, there would be a huge psychological gap. It's better to keep a bit of mystery. and maintain a beautiful image. I won't. The one I like is you, no matter what you look like in real life. I like you. Xiaoka said, I've washed my hands of the criminal world as well, so we're equal now. Ha! Lin Yi smiled. Since you've washed your hands of the criminal world, then forget about the past. Just pretend that the male thief is dead. But you're not dead, and you appeared in front of me again. Xiaoka suddenly said, Right? You're afraid that your girlfriend will find out if I find you after knowing your identity, right? You can say that. Lin Yi didn't answer Xiaoka's question directly. You can say that. That's it? Xiaoka was a little disappointed. Don't worry, I won't disturb you. I just want to know who you are. And if I can see you once in a while, I'll be at ease knowing that you're safe. Forget about that. Lin Yi didn't agree to Xiaoka's suggestion in the end. I'll leave first. You should go back too. Ah, you're leaving? You're not going to care about your underlings? Xiaoka paused. Underlings? I've washed my hands of the criminal world already, and I have nothing to do with them. Lin Yi smiled bitterly in his heart. Underlings? These people were sent to prison by him and Ling Shan, and they were underlings. Oh. Xiaoka nodded. Then I'll go with you? Go back. Perhaps you'll be able to catch up to me next time. Lin Yi turned around and disappeared into the night. Not taking a single leaf with him, Xiaoka rubbed her eyes. Shocked, no way? So fast? But no matter what, Xiaoka was still in a very good mood. She was a little disappointed that the male thief didn't reveal his true identity, but the fact that he was here for her meant that he still cared about her. Last time, the male thief had said that he wouldn't appear as the male thief ever again, but this time, he still did. Xiaoka was confident that in the near future, she would be able to meet him again. With that thought, Xiaoka was filled with confidence once more. She quickly jumped down from the tree and ran towards the orphanage. Since Lin Yi was fine, the other members of the couple had nothing to do with Xiaoka. Naturally, she wouldn't stay here anymore. Xiao Ken let out a breath of relief when he saw Xiaoka return to the orphanage. It seemed like Lin Yi really did keep his promise and let Xiaoka return safely. Xiao Ken wanted to ask about Lin Yi, but he remembered the promise he made with Lin Yi. Lin Yi said that he would help Xiaoka sis in the dark, so he didn't ask. He was a man of his words, and since he promised Lin Yi, he wouldn't say anything. He was a little surprised. Xiaoka sis, you're back. Did you successfully see the male thief? Yes, I saw him. Xiaoka nodded excitedly. I saw him, and he wasn't caught. I don't know where he heard that I was coming to save him, so he came to stop me. Ha! That's not right. How did he know? Target equals _blank. Chapter 1683. Xiaoka was immersed in the joy of reuniting with the male thief and didn't think about the details. But now that she was back at the orphanage and calmed down, she felt that something wasn't right. She only told Xiao Ken about this, so how did the male thief know? Male thief? He went to stop you? Xiao Ken paused. He thought that Lin Yi had helped Xiaoka, but he didn't think that the male thief would appear in front of her personally. This meant that the male thief hadn't been caught, and this male thief seemed to be someone Lin Yi found. After all, he had asked Lin Yi for help, and then the male thief appeared right after. He wouldn't believe that it had nothing to do with Lin Yi. Yeah, how did he know that I went to the execution? Xiao Ken, did you tell anyone about me? Xiaoka frowned as she looked at Xiao Ku. Xiao Ken didn't know what to say. He promised Lin Yi that he wouldn't tell anyone, but he was curious, what did the male thief look like? He still looked the same, wearing a mask. Xiaoka said, What's wrong? No. Then what is he wearing? Xiao Ken suddenly had an inexplicable premonition in his heart. He was wearing a normal white shirt, beige pants. What's wrong? Xiaoka recalled what the male thief was wearing and said, You didn't see him before, did you? Xiao Ken's eyes widened after hearing Xiaoka's words. It couldn't be, right? White shirt, beige pants. Wasn't that what Lin Yi was wearing? Xiao Ken had a good memory, so he remembered it clearly. Could it be that the male thief that Xiaoka saw was Lin Yi in disguise? That didn't seem right. Xiao Ken shook his head inwardly. How could Lin Yi have the male thief's mask? How could he know what the male thief's mask looked like? He didn't even know what the male thief's mask looked like. Sister Xiao Ku had never told him about it. Xiao Ken naturally wouldn't repeat it to Lin Yi. Then where did Lin Yi's mask come from? Was the male thief Lin Yi? Or could it be that Lin Yi knew the male thief from the start, and so he pretended to be him to stop Xiaoka from coming back? But if that was the case, then there were still two suspicious points. First, since the male thief was the one Xiaoka liked, she should have a deep impression of him. Wouldn't she be able to tell if someone was pretending to be him? Secondly, where was Lin Yi going to find the male thief's mask in such a short time? If that was the case, then the only possibility left was that Lin Yi was the male thief, or that Lin Yi knew the male thief and could find him to stop Xiaoka. However, these two possibilities were a little too unbelievable, but that didn't mean it was impossible, and Ken was leaning towards the first guess. Could it be that Yu Xiaochao was wearing the same clothes as Lin Yi? I haven't seen it before, but when you left, I think I saw someone wearing the same clothes following you. I wanted to warn you, but you guys ran too fast and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Xiao Ken had no choice but to lie. I thought I was seeing wrongly. I didn't think that it was the male thief. Ah, he followed me? Then he must have heard our conversation. Could it be that he guessed that I would go save him after seeing the news? So he came here early? Xiaoka didn't know what was going on. It was a small possibility, but it was the only explanation that made sense. I don't know either. Xiao Ken's heart was in turmoil. It couldn't be this coincidental, right? Lin Yi was the male thief. It seemed that she'd made the right call and found the right person. And Xiaoka's sis didn't seem to have any feelings for Lin Yi. It's fine. Go back to your work. Since there's nothing else, there's no need to give the letter to the dean. Oh, okay. Xiao Ken ran out of Xiaoka's room as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He felt bad lying in front of Xiaoka, so he had to leave as soon as possible so that he could relax. When Lin Yi returned to the villa, Faubert had just returned as well. Lin Yi hadn't been home these days, and it was Faubert and Chen Tian protecting Meng Yao and Yushu. Chen Tian used to be alone, but he was afraid that something like the exam would happen again. So Faubert would come back every night. Today, Lin Yi was back. Faubert didn't know about it. So he went back to the villa after sending Pengzhan home. When Faubert parked his car, Lin Yi's car was parked right beside Faubert's. Yi, you're back? Faubert saw Lin Yi and said happily, Yao Yao and Shu missed you a lot. Come in. Ha ha. Faubert, I came back a while ago, but I had to go out for a while. Lin Yi smiled. They've seen me already. I see. You've seen them already. Faubert nodded. These two missed you a lot. Since you've seen them, let's go in together. Wait for me. I'll take out some food from the car. It turned out that Faubert had bought some fast food. Lin Yi wasn't home, so there was no one to cook for Yao Yao and Shu. Sometimes, Faubert had to accompany Pengzhan to socialize, so he couldn't deliver food to them every day. As a result, they had to rely on fast food to survive. Lin Yi and Faubert walked into the villa together. Meng Yao and Yushu had already washed up and were about to sleep. They didn't have much to do these days, so they slept early at home. Seeing Lin Yi walk in, Yushu said sleepily, Shield bro, you're back. I still want to listen to your stories, but I'm so tired. Then we'll talk about it tomorrow. Lin Yi smiled. There's no rush. You and Yao Yao can rest first. I have something to discuss with Faubert. Yushu was a little disappointed. I was hoping Shield bro could coax me to sleep. All right, shoo, Linny just came back. If he has something to discuss with Faubert, then it must be important. Let's go to sleep first, don't disturb him. Meng Yao thought about it more than Yushu. Lin Yi already said that he didn't know martial arts when he talked about what happened at House Tang, and that it was all made up. He should be studying martial arts with Faubert right now, so Meng Yao naturally wouldn't disturb him. Okay. Yushu nodded with a yawn before getting dragged upstairs by Meng Yao in a daze. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1684. Is there something you need from me? Faubert was a little confused. He didn't know why Lin Yi was looking for him so seriously. Faubert, you used to be in Earth class, right? Lin Yi asked. Yes, before I lost my strength, I was in Earth class. Faubert sighed, as if reminiscing about the past, a look of melancholy on his face. I don't know when I'll be able to recover my peak strength. But even if I do, I don't know who my enemies are. Don't worry, Faubert. The truth will come to light one day. Lin Yi consoled. As long as you're here, there's hope. I'm still leveling up, and you'll level up with me. When we reach Sky class, the day we get our revenge won't be far. Yeah, it's good that you're still here, but I'm the only one left. My wife, my daughter, and my Shifu, they're all gone. Faubert was a little helpless and unwilling. I thought I'd let it go, but ever since you raised me to mystic early phase, I couldn't suppress the fire of vengeance in my heart. I knew that one day I might have to step on this path. I'm really sorry, Yi. Maybe in the near future, I won't be able to fulfill my promise to take care of Yao Yao and the others for the rest of their lives. They and Mr. Chu's safety will have to depend on you. Ha! Look at what you're saying. Isn't it just revenge? What's the big deal? When I can raise you to Sky Class, I'll be Sky Class 2, and the people around me will be Sky Class 2. Lingshan, Yutian, Qintian, and Xiao we have 6 Sky Class Masters. Even an ancient sect wouldn't have such a strong lineup. Wouldn't it be a piece of cake for us to wipe out your enemy then? Lin Yi comforted Li Fu nonchalantly after hearing the words. You're right. Uncle Fu nodded his head. At that time, with so many Heaven Stage experts, they will be able to eliminate my enemy. Hearing you say that, I am relieved and have regained a lot of confidence. Right? Why are you asking about this all of a sudden? Faubert realized that Lin Yi wouldn't bring this up for no reason. Actually, I wanted to ask you, do you know anything about martial arts? Lin Yi asked. Martial arts? Earth class martial arts? Of course, I know this. For cultivators, the Earth class is a watershed. The Golden class can only be considered as the beginning, and the Mystic class can be considered as a small achievement. But only when you reach the Earth class can you be considered to have truly stepped onto the path of cultivation. Uncle Fu said, only when you reach the Earth class can you be considered a true cultivator. Martial techniques are their battle skills, and they have quite a bit of an advantage over Mystic and Yellow class. This is also the reason why the Hidden House Arbitration Association restricted Earth class from appearing in the common world. If they really fought, Mystic and Golden class would be no match for them. So that's how it is. Then, Faubert, do you have any martial skills? Lin Yi asked, or in other words, do you have any powerful martial skills? Of course I practiced martial skills. Why are you suddenly asking about this? Could it be that you've already... Faubert wasn't stupid. After listening to Lin Yi's words, he was able to come to a conclusion. He looked at Lin Yi in shock. That's right. I'm already at the early stage of Earth class. Lin Yi smiled as he revealed his Earth class strength to Faubert. I didn't expect that you actually broke through. Although Faubert knew that Lin Yi would definitely break through one day, he didn't expect it to be this fast. Before, when Lin Yi was at home, he had been looking for an opportunity to break through. However, after being poisoned by the 5-step powder, it became even more hopeless. From Faubert's point of view, Lin Yi could only wait until the antidote was removed. That would have to wait until next year. However, he didn't expect that Lin Yi was already in Earth class when he came back. Luckily, I had no choice but to eat the Qi gathering pill. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. It's a bit of a waste to eat it, but it's still useful. You ate the Qi gathering pill? Falbert was stunned. Don't tell me you don't know about the drawbacks of the Qi gathering pills. Falbert didn't expect Lin Yi to directly eat the Qi gathering pill as an opportunity to break through. This shocked him. Before, Lin Yi said that he got a Qi gathering pill. Falbert didn't pay much attention to it. After all, it was a pill for the peak of the late stage of Earth class to break through to Heaven class. For Lin Yi, it was still too far away, so Falbert didn't say much about it. However, he didn't expect that Lin Yi had already taken it without permission. This made Falbert surprised and regretful. When he was young, he also heard about the Qi gathering pill. However, his master told him about the drawbacks of the Qi gathering pill. It's just that the drawbacks were not this drawbacks for Falbert. It was also because Falbert's sect was looking for the Qi gathering pill with great fanfare that it attracted the suspicion of other sections. Therefore, the treasure was exposed, and the sect was destroyed. I know, it's just that after eating it, it'll be difficult to cultivate again. Now, the natural world's spiritual energy is too thin. It's not as pure as the Qi in the Qi gathering pill. Therefore, after taking the Qi gathering pill, it's instinctive to reject the Qi in the natural world. It's impossible to continue cultivating in the natural world. Lin Yi said, yes, it's like a barbarian eating raw meat. After eating cooked food, it's hard to swallow raw meat. It's the same principle. Falbert nodded and said, since you know, why did you still eat the Qi gathering pill? Don't you want to continue breaking through from Earth class? I'm different from others. Lin Yi smiled. I have my own way of cultivation. After listening to Lin Yi's words, Falbert was slightly stunned. Although he was curious, he didn't ask further. In the past, he also had that treasure, so he didn't have the drawbacks of taking the Qi gathering pill. However, this treasure brought disaster to his sect. Therefore, after listening to Lin Yi's words, Falbert didn't ask further. You want to learn martial arts? But martial arts are generally compatible with the Heart Sutra. When you cultivate the Heart Sutra, don't you have a martial art that goes with it? Falbert asked curiously. Although some profound martial arts are also universal, if you don't have the corresponding Heart Sutra, even if you can learn it, it will be very difficult. Therefore, generally, every Heart Sutra has several corresponding martial arts. This is the essence of the predecessors. My Heart Sutra combined with the martial arts may not be suitable for your Heart Sutra. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1685. There's such a thing. Lin Yi was taken aback. He'd picked up his practitioner's arts from the cave, and other than a jade pendant and the first stage of the art of dragon mastery, he didn't have any other martial arts manuals. As a result, he didn't know what martial arts manuals were at all, and he'd almost gotten himself into a huge disadvantage. Heart Sutra. Don't tell me you don't have one? Seeing Lin Yi's surprised look, Falbert was also surprised. Not at the moment. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. My master practices differently from me, and the mantra I practice is not similar to others, so I don't have any martial techniques for now. I can only remember one type of martial skill, which is the one I practice myself. However, it's only the first 3 moves. I haven't had the time to practice the rest. As for the martial skill manuals, they're all in the sect's scripture pavilion. They're long gone. Uncle Fu smiled bitterly. If you want, I can teach you only 3 forms, and I don't even know if I can practice them. Lin Yi sighed helplessly. Not to mention if he could practice Falbert's martial technique. Even if he could, only 3 forms was a little too little. But now Lin Yi had no other choice. Although Lin Yi guessed that there should be a martial technique that went with the art of dragon mastery, Lin Yi didn't have it in his hands. And whether there was one behind the second floor, Lin Yi didn't know either. If there wasn't, when the third door would open was unknown. So Lin Yi was desperate. Since he had Faubert's martial technique, he might as well try it out. As long as it wasn't a martial technique that was soft and gentle like the Ice Palace, then Lin Yi could still try it out. But the Ice Palace martial technique was the polar opposite of Lin Yi's mantra. If he forced himself to practice it, he might go crazy. Holy Church, I'll spend the next 2 days recalling and sorting out the martial skills. You can give it a try. Faubert said, it's been too long since I've used martial skills. I'm a little emotional. I'm an Earth class master now. If you want, I can help you increase your strength right now. Lin Yi suddenly thought that if he could raise Uncle Fu to Earth class as well, then wouldn't it be easier for him to learn from Uncle Fu himself? Wouldn't it be easier and easier to understand than learning from the boring text? It can still be improved? Faubert's eyes suddenly lit up. Then he was filled with the flames of hope. Earth rank. That was the temptation of Earth rank. Once Faubert recovered his Earth rank, it would be equivalent to returning to the peak of his life. In that case, he would be one step closer to his dream of revenge. It should be possible. Lin Yi said, by the way, have you recovered your strength while I was away? Recently? Right, if you hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten about that. At this point, Faubert's face suddenly turned serious. I was wondering before, ever since you helped me increase my strength, it's as if I don't absorb the heaven and earth spiritual chi in the natural world. When I practice for myself, there's no progress at all. No progress at all? Lin Yi was slightly taken aback, but then he thought of something very important. That was, since the chi gathering pill contained a large amount of pure chi, people who used it would be repelled by the heaven and earth spiritual chi in the natural world. Then the energy in his body was even purer than the chi gathering pill. After others used his own energy, wouldn't they be repelled by the heaven and earth spiritual chi in the natural world? After using the chi gathering pill, Lin Yi realized that it didn't affect the absorption of the energy in the jade space at all. This proved that the energy in the jade space was the purest, and even the chi gathering pill couldn't compare to it. That explained what Faubert was talking about. All of a sudden, Lin Yi remembered something Lingshan said before. It seemed that Lingshan was in a similar situation as well. After her strength was forcefully increased by Lin Yi, there was no effect when she practiced. At the thought, Lin Yi couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that the energy being too pure was a drawback as well. These people had received his favor, but at the same time, there was a huge drawback. When they leveled up, they had to rely on Lin Yi to help them break through. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to make any progress on their own. However, he had also absorbed the pure energy in the space of the jade pendant, so the energy in the chi gathering pill was not very pure. From this, he could tell that if the difference in the purity of the energy was not too big, it would not be a problem. If the difference was too big, it would be a problem. The heaven and earth spiritual chi in the ancient times was abundant, and the drawback of the chi gathering pill didn't exist. Now that the heaven and earth spiritual chi was getting thinner and thinner, the drawback was getting more and more obvious. The chi you gave me, Faubert seemed to have thought of this. As well, Lin Yi had said that there wouldn't be any drawbacks after using the chi gathering pill. That meant that the chi Lin Yi got was even purer than the chi in the chi gathering pill. And so, after Lin Yi's chi went into Faubert's body, Faubert started to reject the heaven and earth spiritual chi. No matter how much he trained, he wouldn't make much progress. You thought of it too. Lin Yi nodded and said, the chi I gave you should be about the same as the chi gathering pill. It's both very pure, so it caused the same drawback as the chi gathering pill. It seems that in the future, only I can help you level up, or you can use the chi gathering pill to level up. That's the only way. Falbert smiled bitterly and said, "But this way, I don't have to waste any effort. I can just sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor. With you leveling up in front, I can just follow behind. I can break through and level up effortlessly." This is really, originally, when Falbert was in his own sect, he had the help of that precious treasure. So he thought that leveling up was very fast. It was like opening a cheat and opening a cheat, so it was much easier than others. But now, until he met Lin E, Falbert finally understood what a real cheat and cheat was. Lin E was much more powerful than the precious treasure of his own sect. Even with the help of that precious treasure, he still had to train hard in order to achieve anything. But with Lin E, he didn't need to do that at all. He just had to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. Lin E could be said to be much more important than that precious treasure. If this matter were to spread, it was estimated that a living person like Lin E would become a target for all the major sections. Of course, if Lin E had great strength, then he would become a powerful person who was even more sought after than the profession of alchemist and would be respected by others. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1686. But if he wasn't strong enough and was captured and used as a leveling machine, that wouldn't be good. Lil E, it's best not to reveal this ability of yours to people you don't know. This ability of yours is a priceless treasure. Falbert said solemnly, "An innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. Back then, I was the best example." Falbert, don't worry, I naturally won't let people I don't know about this ability of mine. The only people I can help are those I'm very close to and close to. Linny said, "It's getting late. Shall we start now?" "Okay." Falbert nodded solemnly and sat cross-legged in front of Lin E. With the previous experience, Falbert was no stranger to Lin E, helping him increase his strength. Lin E held onto Falbert's meridians and entered the space of the jade, channeling the art of dragon mastery. Falbert, on the other hand, started channeling his Nigong. Immediately, Lin Yi's boundless chi surged over, lifting Falbert's spirits. It wasn't the first time either of them increased their strength, so it was a walk in the park for them. Falbert quickly channeled his Nigong and channeled the chi from Lin E for his own use. Peak early phase, mid-phase, peak mid-phase. Falbert's forehead was dripping with sweat. Although this was a way to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor, the speed was too fast, and Falbert was having trouble digesting it. It was like force-feeding a duck, making Falbert very tired. Although it was hard, Falbert's heart was filled with excitement and joy. He had been training for so long and was still in the early phase of the mystic class, but as soon as Linny came back, he raised his strength all the way up, directly breaking through several barriers that were extremely difficult for others. For normal practitioners, raising their strength by one level was already a very difficult thing. Even if Lin E invented several ways to break through, it was still extremely difficult and tiring, not to mention others. The journey was smooth, from mid-phase peak to late phase peak, but when he got here, Falbert's strength suddenly stopped. But this was what Linny had foreseen. Every time he leveled up, he could only raise the person's strength to late phase peak, which was one level lower than his own. If he didn't use any special methods, then this would always be the case. But Lin E wasn't worried. Lin E invented the method of compressing qi and successfully made Lingshan, Yuqian, Qintian, and Falbert break through from golden late phase peak to mystic early phase. So when Falbert reached late phase peak, Linny stopped the energy transfer when he was just a little bit away from mystic late phase peak. He wanted to take a short break and then send a compressed qi bag over, letting Falbert break through to earth class. Rest for a while, and then I'll compress qi to help you break through. This process should be very painful, just like when you broke through from golden late phase peak to mystic early phase. Linny said, "It's okay, I can hold on." Falbert nodded. This little pain is nothing compared to the increase in strength. Even if it's 10,000 times more painful, it'll be worth it. Falbert wasn't being humble. He was speaking the truth. If someone else could increase their strength by this much, not to mention this little pain, it would be worth it even if they had to stay in the hospital for 1.5 years. Okay, let's continue. Lin Yi nodded and started to compress qi. Lin Yi was very familiar with the amount of energy needed to break through from mystic late phase peak to earth class early phase. But since Lin Yi was already in earth class early phase, Lin Yi had calculated the amount of qi needed. So, to ensure that Falbert could break through in one go, Lin Yi compressed the exact amount of energy this time. The next moment, Lin Yi sent the compressed qi into Falbert's body, and Falbert's face flushed red. His body made a loud bang, and with a scream, he fell to the ground, sweating profusely from the pain. Falbert moaned in pain, as if he was severely injured. Falbert, how are you? Lin Yi was startled. He didn't expect this to happen. He quickly put his hand on Falbert's meridians and checked, only to find that more than half of Falbert's meridians were damaged. No wonder Falbert was in so much pain. It would be weird if he wasn't in pain with more than half of his meridians damaged. But why would Falbert's meridians be damaged and not directly break through to Earth class? Suddenly, Lin Yi remembered what happened after he was poisoned. After he was poisoned, he tried to increase his strength to mystic late phase peak, and then tried to compress qi to break through, but it failed. Compressing qi didn't help him break through, and instead, it caused his meridians to explode. And before that, when Lin Yi broke through from mystic late phase to mystic late phase peak, he also tried to compress qi, but it also ended in failure. Thinking about this, Lin Yi finally understood why Falbert was injured. It turned out that compressing qi was no longer effective for mystic late phase peak to earth class. His meridians couldn't handle the consequences of releasing the compressed qi in an instant, and it was directly damaged. And before Lin Yi helped Falbert raise his strength from mystic early phase to mystic late phase peak, and there were no obstacles in between, so Lin Yi neglected this point. Or it could be said that Lin Yi thought that this method didn't help him break through, but it was helpful to forcefully increase the strength of others. But the result was still a failure, and this made Lin Yi a little annoyed. Falbert's damaged meridians weren't a big deal, and Lin Yi channeled the art of dragon mastery on the spot to help Falbert repair his damaged meridians. But what Lin Yi was worried about now was that he couldn't raise others to Earth class. Lin Yi's plan was to bring Lingshan, Chen Yutian, and Wu Qintian to the Noble House meeting, but now it seemed that this dream couldn't be realized. Mystic late phase peak was already a top existence in the Noble House meeting, but for a hidden Noble House, it was still too weak. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1687. The Noble House meeting was already in the bag for Lin Yi, but Lin Yi's eyes were on the hidden House Yu and House Xiao. If he touched the common House Yu, would the hidden House Yu come out to help? As the in-laws of the hidden House Yu and his enemy, would the hidden House Xiao come out as well? This was what Lin Yi was worried about the most. If Lin Yi had Lingshan, Chen Yuyao, Wu Qingyao, and Falbert for Earth-class fighters, then it would be quite a shock to the hidden House Yu. At the very least, they would have to think about the consequences before touching him. As long as it wasn't their sky class, then Lin Yi and the others had the strength to fight. Falbert's meridians were fixed by Lin Yi. Falbert let out a long breath and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Didn't break through? Failed? Should we try again? I can hold it in. It's fine even if I fail. I can still fix it. Falbert saw the disappointment in Lin Yi's eyes and asked, "No pop-up window, there's no need to try. This won't work." Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "I've tried this before, trying to break through on my own, but I failed. It seems like the meridians of a mystic have a limit. They can't handle such a huge amount of compressed energy. Mystic late phase peak, I'm satisfied." Faubert stretched his arms. To be honest, from the moment I was crippled to the moment I started practicing physical arts, I never thought that one day I would become a mystic late phase peak. Ha, Faubert, you don't have to comfort me. I'm just a little disappointed. Lin, he said, but it's nothing late phase mystic then. It's about time. You rest first, I'll go back and think of something else. Okay, then you should rest early too. Faubert saw that Lin Yi was unwilling and didn't want to give up, so he didn't say much. After returning to his room, Lin Yi immediately entered the Jade Space and discussed with Zhao Yazi about breaking through from Mystic Late Phase Peak to Earth Class. You've tried it so many times, and I've been watching from the side. If there was a way, why wouldn't I tell you? Zhao Yazi rolled his eyes and said, I don't have any other way, unless you become an alchemist and refine a chi-gathering pill for them. Isn't that the same as not saying anything? I haven't even crossed the threshold of an alchemist yet, and I'm still refining pills. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Ever since I got to Earth Class, I've clearly felt the difference between me and the others. People with sex and families really are different. I've been trying to figure things out on my own, but the people from the other clans and families have been training and preparing for this. But you have the Jade Pendant, and they don't. Zhao Yazi said. That's true. Lin Yi nodded. This was the only thing he was proud of, and his final trump card. It was a secret that couldn't be revealed. Don't worry too much, the 5-year full moon is coming. When you open the second level of the stone door, perhaps you'll have an unexpected reward. Zhao Yazi said, I can only place my hopes on that. Lin Yi said, since Elder Zhao couldn't think of a way, Lin Yi had to think of a way himself. Lin Yi trained in the Jade Space as he thought of a way, but no matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't think of anything that could work. Indeed, when Lin Yi was poisoned, he thought of almost every possible way. Even if he thought of something now, he'd already rejected it. What other way could he come up with? If there really was a new way, Lin Yi wouldn't need to use the chi-gathering pill. The next day, Lin Yi went shopping with Meng Yao, Yushu, and Tang Yun before going to Qin Yao's hospital. Ling Shan was called to the hospital by Lin Yi as well. You're back? I heard that you went back to your hometown with Tang Yun. Ling Shan didn't know the specifics. She only knew that Lin Yi had been looking for an opportunity to break through, but she didn't hear from Lin Yi for a long time. After the case of the fake Lin Yi was finally closed, she wanted to contact Lin Yi, but her phone couldn't get through, so she called Meng Yao's house and found out that Lin Yi had gone back with Tang Yun. Lin Yi's phone couldn't get through, perhaps because the battery ran out, or because the Tang family's house was blocked. As for the specific reason, Lin Yi didn't know. Yeah, I just came back yesterday. Lin Yi said, how's the fake Lin Yi's case? I heard from Yao Yao that you came looking for me. It's closed. We didn't get any valuable clues. That suspect is no different from an idiot. Most of the nerves in his brain have been damaged by drugs, and after the hypnotist's instructions, he's no different from an idiot. Ling Shan said, helplessly, we know he's just a puppet, but we just can't find the person behind the scenes. We've got the image of the driver at the toll booth, and we've done a comparison in our database, but we can't find anything similar. This person must have had plastic surgery just like that fake Lin Yi, so we don't have any information on him. Lin Yi shrugged. What Ling Shan said wasn't too far off from what he'd expected. Since the enemy had such a high level of skill and methods, how could they let Ling Shan find any clues and loopholes so easily? The mastermind must have hidden it a long time ago. Lin Yi guessed that it was an enemy of his that did this, but he wasn't too sure who it was. Forget it. Other than those enemies of mine, there's no one else who would be able to create a fake me. Lin Yi waved his hand. But it's fine. We'll have to face these people sooner or later. Let's face the Noble House meeting first. You're right. Ling Shan nodded. Right, Grandpa called me a couple of times already, asking me, what's going on with your phone and me? He said that House Song's going to be very passive in the Noble House meeting, but since it's a secret, I've been avoiding him. Grandpa's probably worried sick. I understand, but the situation's changed. I might not be able to help you guys get to Earth class. Linny looked at Ling Shan and Yu Yao, a little embarrassed. His words from before were still ringing in his ears, but he couldn't fulfill them now. To be continued. By fill slot. Target equals _ blank. Chapter 1688. What? Ling Shan and Yu Yao's faces froze. Every day, they'd hoped that Linny would come back and raise their strength to Earth class early phase. That way, they'd be able to take the initiative in the Noble House meeting and fight for a place for their house. But now, that dream was shattered. They couldn't accept it, although all of this was because of Lin Yi, and without Lin Yi, they wouldn't even be Mystic early phase. But now, they'd already had that dream, and they'd imagine the scene they'd be in during the Noble House meeting. Suddenly saying that they couldn't do it would be a huge blow to anyone's heart. No pop-up window but. After the disappointment, Ling Shan and Yu Yao thought of something more important. Ling Shan looked up at Lin Yi. You didn't break through to Earth class. I did. Lin Yi sighed and channeled his practitioner's arts, showing his strength to Ling Shan and Yu Yao. But I can't bring you guys to Earth class. The method from before didn't work. I tried it with Thalbert last night, and it didn't work. Ling Shan didn't know what to say, but Lin Yi breaking through to Earth class was something worth celebrating. If Lin Yi had publicly supported House Song, then House Song would still be a part of the Noble House, and their position wouldn't have changed. After all, the strongest person in the Noble House meeting was only House Yuzu Shueishing, a mystic late phase peak. Lin Yi was one level above him, so the situation wasn't too bad. As long as you broke through, that's fine. It doesn't matter if I get my revenge with my own hands. As long as I get my revenge, I'll be happy. Yu Yao was worried that Lin Yi would feel pressured, so after a moment of disappointment, she started to persuade Lin Yi. With an Earth-class boss like you protecting us, not only can I get my revenge, but House Chen can also keep its position. This is a happy ending. Ha. Lin Yi smiled. Who said you can't get your revenge with your own hands? Revenge doesn't have to be Earth-class early phase. That Yufeng is only a Mystic mid-phase. Even if he broke through recently, he wouldn't be able to surpass Mystic mid-phase peak. Mystic mid-phase. That's 2 levels higher than me. If he's at the peak of mid-phase, that's 3 levels higher. I'm only at the early phase of Mystic class. How can I fight him? Chun Yao smiled bitterly. Instructor Eagle. You're not playing with me, are you? Ling Shan was now one of Lin Yi's close friends. Not only were they close, but they also had another close relationship, so Lin Yi wouldn't hide things from her anymore. She knew about him and Huaijuan, and naturally she knew about Yu Yao as well. Yu Yao wouldn't be too secretive in front of Ling Shan. Could it be? Ling Shan's eyes lit up as she looked at Lin Yi, pleasantly surprised. Keep talking. Silly girl, looks like you're not that dumb after all. Whether or not you can get rid of the silly girl hat will depend on your performance. Lin Yi smiled. I'm not dumb in the first place. Ling Shan rolled her eyes angrily, but she had always been a punching bag in front of Lin Yi. She didn't dare go against Lin Yi's suggestion. If she could get rid of the silly girl hat, it would be a good thing. She continued, if I'm not wrong, you won't be able to raise us to Earth class early phase, but you can at least raise our strength to Mystic mid-phase peak. Not bad. Lin Yi praised as he looked at Ling Shan. You've grown some brains lately. Ling Shan pouted, feeling wronged. It's all right, but don't call me silly girl anymore. Call me cute girl. Buffed. Yu Yao was about to take a sip of water when she heard what Ling Shan said. She almost choked to death. Cough, cough, cough. Cute girl? That's a good title. I was going to give it to Yao Yao or Shu. Tell me first, why you have to be at least Mystic mid-phase peak? Lin Yi rejected Ling Shan's suggestion because you said that your phone wouldn't exceed Mystic Mid-Phase Peak, and even if he was Yu Yao Bro, would still be able to get his revenge. That means that you can at least raise us to Mystic Mid-Phase Peak. Ling Shan said proudly. Am I right? That's right. Lin Yi nodded. Your analysis is correct. Then, am I still silly girl? Can I change it? Ling Shan was overjoyed. Her relationship with Lin Yi was one step closer, going from Miss Brain Dead to Miss Silly, and now it was going to change again. Actually, I'm basically calling you Ling Shan now. Silly girl was just joking. Don't you think that silly girl is pretty cute? Lin Yi smiled. That's true. Ling Shan nodded after some thought. That's what couples usually call each other. Then you can call me silly girl. As for Ling Shan, just call me Shan Shan. Ling Shan's a bit awkward. All right. Lin Yi didn't need to argue with Ling Shan about things that didn't really matter. He knew what Ling Shan was thinking, but things like this were better to let nature take its course. At least for now, he didn't have the mood to do so. Then, what's the highest level you can raise us to? Chun Yao asked impatiently after Ling Shan and Lin Yi were done flirting with each other. Mystic Late Phase Peak. Lin Yi said, That's the limit for now. I'll think of another way to raise you guys to Earth class. Mystic Late Phase Peak. What's the difference between this and Earth class early phase? Chun Yao jumped up from his chair in shock. Before, Lin Yi said that he couldn't raise them to Earth class, and Chun Yao thought that he couldn't raise them at all. But now that he heard that he could raise them to Mystic Late Phase Peak, he was overjoyed. In his eyes, Mystic Late Phase Peak was already at the top of the noble houses. Once they reached Earth class, there would be hidden houses coming to recruit them. Of course, only house you had an Earth class, the other noble houses had Mystic Early Phase and Middle Phase, which was already very powerful. Like Wu Gonggao, the head of House Wu, who had Mystic Mid-Phase, was already very powerful. As long as he didn't reach the level of a hidden house, Mystic Late Phase Peak was already the highest level. To be continued. By fill slot. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1689. This was why Yu Yao was reacting like this. Earth class was too far away from him, since it was something that only existed in legends. It was too far away from the noble houses. And Mystic Late Phase Peak was the highest level that he could see and touch. Wondrous book room. Yeah, Mystic Late Phase Peak. That's already the top of the common world's noble houses. Ling Shan was surprised as well. Lin Yi's words meant that she could reach Mystic Late Phase Peak as well. Aren't your goals a little too low? Above the noble houses, there's the hidden noble houses, and above them are the ancient sects and ancient noble houses. As for what's above the ancient level, we don't know yet, but there's definitely a higher level above Sky Class. Don't you guys want to pursue a higher level of martial arts? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. This Ice Palace test had broadened Lin Yi's horizons a lot. In the past, Lin Yi had thought that he'd work hard to break through to Sky Class, but he'd never been this close to a Sky Class before. When he saw Crystal Candy, Qing, and Elder Tang, Lin Yi realized that Sky Class wasn't that mysterious after all. Once upon a time, Mystic was Lin Yi's goal, because the highest level that Lin Yi could see was Mystic. Later on, Lin Yi broke through to Mystic, but Earth Class entered Lin Yi's sights. And now Lin Yi's goal was Earth Class. And when Lin Yi became an Earth Class, he realized that Sky Class wasn't that far away. At every stage, there was a goal, but if you didn't reach that level, you'd never be able to touch that level. It was like a frog in a well. If it didn't go out, it'd always think that the sky was only as big as the well, but once it went out, the world would be different. But Ling Shan and Yu Yao's reactions were understandable to Lin Yi. Their current level of contact was limited to the hidden noble houses. Only the hidden noble houses and normal sects had direct contact with the ancient levels. It was too far away for the noble houses. Above Sky Class. To be honest, Ling Shan never thought that she'd become a Sky Class one day. Ling Shan's dream and goal was mystic early phase. As long as she reached that level, she'd be able to buy time for her brother to grow up and secure their position as a noble house. But just the early phase of mystic class was still a dream, an unreachable dream. The people of noble houses only trained to protect their status. They never thought about chasing after the sky class like the hidden houses, chasing after immortality. But ever since she met Lin Yi, Ling Shan realized that she really was a frog in a well. The things she didn't even dare to think about were realized with Lin Yi's help, and she was about to become the strongest person in the noble house. Mystic late phase peak. And that wasn't all. Lin Yi told her that she'd become a sky class one day. Ling Shan was very excited. She didn't think that she'd be this lucky, meeting such a strong man. It seemed like she had to work hard. She might be a little later than Tang Yun, Meng Yao, and Yushu, but she was at least one step ahead of Xiao Xiao, right? Now, that Xiao Xiao was Lin Yi's small wife. She didn't even have the title of a maid. Ling Shan felt that her next goal was to get a title, even if it was a lowly maid. As long as she could follow Lin Yi for the rest of her life, then sky class wouldn't be a dream anymore. With that thought, Ling Shan's eyes on Lin Yi heated up once more. She'd always looked up to strength since she was young. Otherwise, she wouldn't have set a goal that her future husband had to be stronger than her. Now, her goal seemed to have been achieved, and Lin Yi wasn't just a normal strong. He was stronger than she'd imagined. And so, after confirming that she liked Lin Yi, she lowered her standards, and the Miss of House song started to compromise. Being able to stay by Lin Yi's side was already good enough, and she didn't want Lin Yi to only have one woman by his side. There's an old saying that goes, when you're in the martial arts world, you can't do what you want. Lin Yi sighed. Thinking about it, that's indeed the case. Unless you find a place to live in seclusion, you'll have to keep chasing after higher realms of martial arts because your enemies are growing as well. If you don't move forward, what awaits you is death. You're right. Yu Yao nodded, but sky class, I never thought about it in the past. My goal was actually to surpass Sis Ling Shan, and that would be the end of the world. But looking at me now, how childish was I? Even if I'm the same level as Ling Shan now, I don't have any other thoughts, because my strength isn't from my own training, but from the man Sis Ling Shan likes. What right do I have to chase after her? So, after thinking it through, I've realized that I should find the love that truly belongs to me, and not the obsession and fantasy I had when I was young. Ha! Lin Yi didn't know how to respond to Yu Yao's words, so he only smiled. Right, Lin Yi, I'll call you boss from now onwards. Wu Chintian calls you boss so smoothly, it's a little disrespectful for me to call you by your name. Yu Yao had wanted to say this a long time ago, putting aside the fact that you were my instructor. Now that you've helped me so much, you should be my boss. What about Shu if you call me boss? Isn't that messing up the seniority? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He knew that Yu Yao would bring this up eventually. To this, Lin Yi didn't reject it. Lin Yi wasn't one to follow rules and be humble. So when Qintian, Qikuan, and Yubing called him boss, he agreed. But when it came to Yu Yao, because of Yushu, Lin Yi still treated him like a big brother. Shu, let's wait until she marries you first. Yu Yao smiled bitterly. It's not confirmed yet. Ahem. Yu Yao, what do you mean? Why are you giving your sister to Lin Yi? I didn't agree, so you're messing with me on purpose, aren't you? Ling Shan glared at Yu Yao. Haha, it's just a joke. Yu Yao smiled. All right, call me whatever you want. It's just a name. I'll raise you guys to mystic late phase peak, and with Wu Qintian we'll go to the noble house meeting and get justice. It's time for House Yu to pay back their blood debt. Lin Yi smiled coldly at the thought of Armadillo. To be continued. Buy fill slot. Target equals _blank. Chapter 16, 9E. It didn't matter what role House you played in the Armadillo incident. Lin Yi wouldn't let them go. Even with the hidden House Yu's protection, Lin Yi was going to get justice. Lin Yi was a man who would protect his own people. The only ones who could come out unscathed after hurting him were Houseu. Wondrous book Room Lin Yi's words made Ling Shan and Yu Yao's hearts tighten. It seemed like being friends with Lin Yi was the luckiest thing that had happened to them in their lifetimes. Lin Yi was famous for his loyalty to his friends and women. Ling Shan, sis, you go first. Ladies first. Yu Yao smiled. This time, it was different from breaking through to mystic. It was just a test, so as a man, Yu Yao naturally went to the front. This time, however, there was 100% chance of reaching mystic late phase peak. And so Yu Yao gave this chance to Ling Shan, letting her enjoy the pleasure of reaching mystic late phase peak first. I've already surpassed you once in my life, and I'm satisfied. Yu Yao was talking about the time in the tomb when Lin Yi first raised him to mystic early phase. In this life, he'd surpassed Ling Shan in that instant, and that was enough for him to let go of his grudge. Then I won't hold back. Ling Shan sat in front of Lin Yi and extended her hand to Lin Yi. Everyone was familiar with this, so Lin Yi didn't need to say much. Ling Shan was already prepared. Lin Yi didn't say much and started channeling his art of dragon mastery, sending qi into Ling Shan's body. Ling Shan frowned slightly, unable to take this amount of qi, but she gritted her teeth and persevered. There weren't many chances to level up like this. Other practitioners wouldn't even be able to level up like this. So Ling Shan didn't think that it was a big deal. Ling Shan reached mystic late phase peak without any suspense, and after her was Yu Yao. The next morning, Yu Yao also broke through to mystic late phase peak. Why do I feel like I'm dreaming? Yu Yao stood up and stretched his arms. It feels completely different. Mystic early phase and mystic late phase peak are worlds apart. Once you break through to Earth class, you'll realize that everything will be different. Lin Yi said, Boss, I noticed that you didn't seem to be affected at all after we increased our strength. You're still full of energy. Isn't it a little too amazing? Chun Yao was very surprised to see the energetic Lin Yi. One had to know how much qi was needed to level up two mystic early phase practitioners to mystic late phase peak. It could be said that even if Lin Yi used up all his qi, it still wouldn't be enough. But Lin Yi did it, and his strength didn't seem to be affected at all. Yao bro, let's just talk about this in private. Don't let anyone else know about it, or it'll cause a lot of trouble for Lin Yi. Ling Shan reminded Yu Yao with a serious face. I understand. Chun Yao nodded solemnly and said, This is only a private conversation. How did I improve my strength? Even if you beat me to death, I won't say it. Ha! It's not that serious. If I really wanted to kill you, you'd better tell me. Lin Yi said, Remember this, no matter when life is the most important. As long as there's life, there's hope. There'll always be a chance for revenge. A real man knows when to yield and when to stand tall. A moment of bravery is just an ordinary man's bravery. Ah, ha! Yu Yao was amused by Lin Yi's words. Of course, it doesn't matter if he's crippled. I can heal him. Lin Yi smiled. All right, you guys get ready. I'll go back and level up Wu Qingyao as well. We need to be there before the Noble House meeting. Okay, let's get ready. Yu Yao nodded. Speaking of which, I can't hold it in anymore. I want to kill the Yufeng right now. If it wasn't for Boss, I'd be crippled for life. As they were talking, Ling Shan's phone rang. She was afraid that it would affect Lin Yi's leveling up, so she turned it off. Not long after, a call came in. It was still early in the morning, and she didn't know what it was. Ling Shan frowned when she saw the caller ID. It was Elder Song Xiangwen, who was at home. Hello, Grandpa. What's up? Ling Shan didn't have a choice. She had no choice but to pick up the phone. She couldn't leak the fact that she was going to take revenge on Yufeng. Otherwise, it'd be troublesome if Houseu got help from a hidden Houseu. She had to do something unexpected to achieve the effect she wanted. and so she kept brushing Elder Song off. What's up? What are you talking about? The Noble House meeting is about to start. Are you coming back or not? Why don't you tell me? After you level up, does that mean I won't be your grandpa anymore? One couldn't blame Xiangwen for being angry. House Song was in an awkward position right now, and House Yu was forcing their way in. Not only did they ask Old Song if he still wanted the marriage, but they also asked Old Qin if there was anything going on between Ling Shan and Qin Yao, turning House Qin from the victim to the one in the wrong. Of course, in a noble house, the one with the strongest fist was the one with the right. Facing House Yu, who had a strong backing, House Song and House Qin didn't dare say anything, but they knew that, in this meeting, young Master Gu would be the one to suffer the most. Grandpa, I'll definitely go to the Noble House meeting and give you an explanation, but right now, I really can't go back. Ling Shan said as she looked at Yi Yao and Lin Yi. Then, what's your decision on the marriage with Yufeng? Do you agree or not? Elder Song said sternly, Grandpa, didn't I tell you already? I already have someone I like. I won't marry Yufeng. Ling Shan said firmly as she looked at Lin Yi, blushing. You child, how can you be so stubborn? Do you know what kind of consequences this decision of yours will bring to our Song family? Elder Song was pissed. House Yu's already hinted to me that if you marry Yufeng, they'll let bygones be bygones. Of course, that's under the condition that you're still a virgin, or there'll be no way to resolve this. Oh, then I wouldn't be a virgin a long time ago. Ling Shan said, I've already met the person I like. To be continued. Slot. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1691. Chapter 1692. Bad News. Ling Shan thought that she wasn't lying. She and Lin Yi had met before, but that was under special circumstances. Actually, nothing had happened between the two. Elder Song was seething with anger. Are you telling the truth? Are you trying to kill our Song family? Why can't you think about the bigger picture? I've been supporting House Song for so many years, and now it's all gone. Grandpa, I don't think I've done anything wrong. Ling Shan argued. First of all, you didn't ask for my permission to get engaged, and I really don't like Yufeng. Even if I didn't have someone I liked, I wouldn't marry him. Yu Qian is my friend, my big brother. He got injured by Yufeng, and I'm still marrying him. Aren't you trying to frame me? Old Song went silent after hearing Ling Shan's words. Ling Shan's words weren't unreasonable, and Xianwen wasn't an old fool either. But things had come to this, and there was no turning back. If Ling Shan didn't marry Yufeng, there would be no turning back. House Yu would definitely cause trouble for them in this noble house meeting. Grandpa, actually, if that's the case, we can work with House Qin to fight against House Yu. We might still have a chance. Ling Shan hinted. She couldn't say anything else. House Qin, how are we supposed to work together? House Qin only has Qin Yuqian, and he's already a cripple. Xiangwen sighed. This time, House Qin can't even take care of themselves. It's useless to ally with him. Don't think that he can escape this disaster just because he has a marriage contract with an ancient sect. We don't even know if that marriage contract is valid. Or not. Xiangwen sighed. Perhaps, maybe House Qin has other allies? Ling Shan said, forcing herself to continue hinting. Other allies? With House Qin's current strength, how could they have other allies? Xiangwen paused, not understanding what his granddaughter was saying. Shan, why do I feel like there's more to your words? It's nothing much. I just feel that everything has its own will. Maybe things will turn around. Ling Shan said, All right, Grandpa, let's talk later. I need to work here. There's a lot of stuff going on. Song Xiangwen sighed helplessly. It looked like the Song family was definitely going to be removed from the list of aristocratic families. Ling Shan shrugged after hanging up. Can't help it. I guess I'll have to hide this from Grandpa for now. Aren't I the same? Now my grandpa has lost all hope. He's waiting for house-used trouble during the meeting of the noble houses. Yu Qian sighed and clenched his fist. House Yu Feng, just you wait. I'll wash away this humiliation. Don't worry, you will. Lin Yi patted Yu Qian's shoulder. I'll leave first. Oh, right. There's something I forgot to tell you guys. It's bad news. Do you guys want to hear it? Bad news? What's the bad news? Yu Qian and Lingshan asked, shocked. I wanted to tell you guys after the meeting, but I didn't want you guys to waste your energy on useless stuff, so I decided to tell you guys now. Lin Yi said. What bad news is it? Lingshan asked. Something to do with the noble house meeting? That's not right. You said you could tell us after the meeting. The bad news is that you guys can't train on your own anymore. Lin Yi said regretfully. Can't train on our own. Lingshan paused before remembering something. You're saying that there's no use in training on our own, right? That's right. That's it. Lin Yi nodded. The energy I've transferred into your bodies is too pure, and it's causing you to reject the energy in the natural world. So, the energy in the natural world has no effect on you. Even if you continue to train, it'll be useless unless you go to a place where the energy is abnormally abundant. But it's hard to find a place like that. No wonder. So that's why. Lingshan said, enlightened. I told you before that my training doesn't seem to make any progress at all. So that's why? Yes, you said it last time, and I didn't pay much attention to it, but I found out later. Lin Yi said, from now on, you'll have to wait for me to level up before I help you guys level up, or I'll make pills for you after I learn alchemy. Alchemy? You want to learn alchemy? Lingshan and Yu Qian paused at the same time. They hadn't interacted with alchemists before, but they were from noble houses, after all. They knew that alchemists were an extremely noble profession, and it was very rare. And Lin Yi wanted to learn alchemy? I just have the intention, but I haven't succeeded yet. Lin Yi smiled. Lingshan and Yu Qian couldn't help but admire Lin Yi. He really had the guts to dream. Lin Yi was already strong enough right now, and if he became a refiner, wouldn't all the ancient sects have to suck up to Lin Yi? They heard that alchemists were very popular even in the ancient sects. If Lin Yi really became an elixir refiner, then the Hidden Houses crisis would be easily solved. He believed that at that time, there would be many ancient sects willing to stand up for Lin Yi, begging him to make elixirs for them. It doesn't matter if we train or not. We'll train for a few years on our own, and it won't be as much as what you've done in a short amount of time. So the drawback you mentioned isn't really a drawback to us. Yu Qian smiled. Boss, we'll be relying on you for the rest of our lives. Yeah, this saves me a lot of trouble. I'll just sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor. Lingshan said, my dream is to find a strong man to protect me, and now that I've found one, I don't need to train anymore. I'll go back first, see you later. Lin Yi didn't reply to Lingshan and quickly walked out of the room. Old Wu of House Wu, Wu Gonggao, was in the same bad mood as Song Xiangwen. But the reason for Gonggao's bad mood was different from the two of them. Chun Tian was heavily injured because of Lin Yi's woman. After calling him once, there was no more news, and Gonggao didn't dare call to ask. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1692. He was afraid that Chun Tian would take things too hard, so he resisted the urge to ask about his injury. He planned to let Chun Tian calm down and think things through before returning to the house. However, the noble house meeting was about to start, and no matter what, Gonggao had to give his grandson Wu Chintian a call. In the past noble house meetings, Gonggao had always brought his grandson Wu Chintian along. Chun Tian was his pride back then, and he was one of the stronger ones among the younger generation. No pop-up window, but this year he could only bring Chun Tian along. He was afraid that Chun Tian would feel uncomfortable, so he wanted to bring Chun Tian along as well. Gongao had high hopes for Qintian, but Qintian, on the other hand, wasn't very fond of him. Even with Qintian's injury, Qintian still wasn't favored. He was just valued a little more by Gongao, but he wasn't like Qintian, who could spend a lot of money. His pocket money was still pitifully small. Of course, there was a reason why Gongao didn't like Qintian. Before leaving for the noble house meeting, Gongao called Qintian's phone. "Grandpa." Qintian didn't expect his grandpa to call at this time. He'd been afraid that his grandpa would call to ask about his injury, and he really couldn't talk to him about it. Lin Yi told him to keep it a secret, so he could only keep it a secret, even in front of his grandpa. But his grandpa didn't call after that, and Qintian breathed a sigh of relief. What he didn't expect was that this call would come right before the noble house meeting. And so Qintian asked carefully, "Grandpa, what's up?" "Qintian, how have you been lately? Are you all right?" Gonggao's heart ached when he heard Qintian's careful voice. He thought that Qintian had lost his strength and was afraid of losing his love for him. "Qintian, you're a physical practitioner, so don't be discouraged. It's okay if your meridians are injured. As long as your hands aren't injured, you can still use House Wu's Iron Fist arts. As for your meridians, I'll get someone to ask for a meridian unblocking pill for you. Grandpa, Qintian didn't expect his grandpa to say that, and his heart ached even more. He wanted to tell Gongao that he was fine, that he had recovered, that he was a mystic early phase, and that he was about to reach mystic late phase peak. However, his rationality prevented him from doing so. He knew that if he didn't say it now, his grandfather would only be sad for a short period of time. But if he said it, it would affect Lin Yi's important matters. "All right, Qintian, don't be sad. Don't be discouraged. The noble house meeting is about to begin. Do you want to go with me?" Wu Gongao asked. Qintian didn't know how to answer. "It's fine. I'll bring Wu Qindi with me this time. Why don't you come too? With Grandpa here, no one will laugh at you." Gongao said, "No matter what, I'm still a mystic mid-phase, and I'm one of the top of the noble houses. Thank you, Grandpa, but I won't be going for now." Qintian could only say that. "All right, don't think too much and don't feel pressured." Gongao said, "Then I'll hang up first. Rest well." "All right, but Grandpa, don't worry. I won't let you down. I'll be your pride. And remember my words. I'll do what I say." Qintian couldn't say too much, so he could only hint, "Ha, I'll remember that. I'll wait for that day to come." Gongao smiled. It seemed like Qintian's attitude was quite good, and this made him feel at ease. He was afraid that Qintian wouldn't be able to hold on and do something extreme, but now he seemed to have regained his confidence. After hanging up, Qintian let out a breath of relief and looked at Lin Yi. "Boss, come, I want to level up. I want strength. I'll shine in this noble house meeting and let House Wu become one of the top noble houses. Come." Lin Yi smiled and put his hand on Qintian's meridians, channeling the art of dragon mastery. Qintian, on the other hand, quickly started channeling his own practitioner's arts as well. These few days, Sun Jingyi wasn't having a good time either. After House Sun found out about Qintian's injury, naturally, they didn't want to marry Sun Jingyi to Qintian anymore. The old head of House Sun had mentioned this to Gongao, and although Gongao was angry, he didn't say anything. He knew that marrying Sun Jingyi to a cripple like Qintian was making things difficult for him, and he seemed to have heard from Qintian that Sun Jingyi had an ambiguous relationship with his boss, Lin Yi, so Gongao didn't mind it too much. At this time, even if he couldn't marry House Sun, it wasn't a good idea to make an enemy out of them. Gonggao's compromise made the old head of House Sun a little embarrassed, and he agreed to help Gongao during the meeting. As a result, Gongao felt that this was a good deal. He didn't mention this to Qintian at all, because Qintian had already said that he gave up on pursuing Sun Jingyi. What was the point of bringing this up? And so, Gongao got a great deal for free. Although Gongao wasn't in a good mood about Qintian's injury, he was able to keep his cool during the meeting. At first, when Hao's son told Sun Jingyi about the cancellation of the marriage with Qintian, Sun Jingyi wasn't happy. After all, Qintian had already given up on her and became Lin Yi's follower, so Sun Jingyi didn't care about the marriage at all. Of course, this wasn't the main problem. The main problem was that Hao's son wanted to marry Sun Jingyi off to another noble house for the benefit of Hao's son. Jingyi, I've already signed up a spot for you in this year's aristocratic clan meeting. Come with me to the aristocratic clan meeting. See if there are any young talents there, and I'll help you find a husband. It was the old head of House Sunday. This time, in order to get Sun Jingyi to return to House Sun, he called personally. Grandpa, I've already told my family that I have a boyfriend, someone I like. I want to live my own life. Please don't force me anymore. I don't care about wealth. I just want to live a peaceful life. Sun Jingyi hesitated and refused. I don't want to be a sacrifice for the marriage by target equals _blank. Chapter 1693. Bulsh *T. You're a member of House Sun. How can your marriage be decided so casually? Besides, who said that you're a sacrifice? You're a practitioner of the first stage of House Sun's art. Do you know how important your strength is? You're the target of all the big houses. As long as you agree, you can become the young mistress of House Yu. Elder Sun panicked after hearing Sun Jingyi's words. No pop-up window. I don't want to be the young mistress. I just want to live a peaceful life. What's so good about a noble house? Didn't my parents die because of sex and noble houses? Sun Jingyi wasn't interested in her grandfather's suggestion. I just want to be a normal person. And I've proven to you that I have the ability to support myself. I have my own company, my own business, in a place without the influence of my family. Cough. You're trying to piss me off. Elder Sun started coughing violently after hearing Sun Jingyi's words. Grandpa, what's wrong? Sun Jingyi was shocked and asked hesitantly. Jingyi, tell me the truth. I think I'm at the end of my lifespan, and I don't have many years left. Elder Sun sighed, his words filled with helplessness. So, there are some things that I have to make arrangements in advance. Otherwise, House Sun will be in danger. What? Grandpa, your body, weren't you still very healthy the last time I saw you? Sun Jingyi hated her uncle's family. Her uncle was the one who suggested the marriage with House Wu, and her grandfather didn't force Sun Jingyi. So, although Sun Jingyi didn't like House Sun, she still had some feelings for her grandfather. When she was young, only her younger brother, Sun Yikai, and elder Sun treated Sun Jingyi well. The others thought that Sun Jingyi was an outsider, not a part of House Sunday the last time. The last time you saw Grandpa was 2 years ago, right? Old Man Sun said with a bitter smile. Sun Jingyi's heart suddenly ached. Jingyi, I've never forced you to get married. You should know that when the Wu family came to propose, I just told you to get along. I didn't promise anything. Old Man Sun said. Among the children of the third generation, although I won't say it, I actually dote on you the most. When you were young, you should know that when your older brother, you, and your younger brother got into trouble, I scolded them. I know, Sun Jingyi said quietly. However, you have to know that you are a child of the Sun family. This is an unchangeable fact. As for your marriage, I can give you a certain amount, but it must be an appropriate match. Old Man Sun said, the marriage between the aristocratic families is something that every family does. This can't be changed. Think about it. If you marry a man of humble origin, how can you go back to the Sun family in the future? How can you face the other aristocratic families in the future? My boyfriend is actually very powerful. Although he's not from an aristocratic family, he's still a swordsman. Sun Jingyi listened to her grandfather's words and had no choice but to use Lin Yi as a shield. No matter how powerful a swordsman is, it's useless without the support of a family. You're talking about a rogue cultivator, right? Old Man Sun said, "Actually, you can say that I'm overbearing or unreasonable, but I will never agree to you marrying a swordsman without any power. This is not only related to the future of the Sun family, but it's also related to your own happiness." "My own happiness, I know. Besides, he's really powerful," Sun Jingyi argued. "No matter how powerful he is, how powerful can he be? Could it be that he's a mystic class master?" Old Man Sun asked back, "You have to know that only when a rogue cultivator reaches mystic class can they barely gain the respect of the aristocratic families. However, in the eyes of the hidden houses, they're just some thugs and lackeys. Their status is far lower than the aristocratic families. So, Jingyi, just treat this as my last request before I die. I won't ask you to marry into House Yu, but you should at least marry someone from one of the aristocratic families, right?" "Grandpa, I think he's a mystic class master," Sun Jingyi said helplessly. "Besides, he seems to be very skilled in medicine. Can you let him take a look at your illness?" "Oh, mystic class?" Old Man Sun paused. He was just saying it casually, but he didn't expect that Sun Jingyi's boyfriend was actually a mystic class master. Although a rogue cultivator of mystic class wasn't as important as a golden class master in the eyes of the hidden houses, but a mystic class master was a very powerful existence in the eyes of the aristocratic families. Old Man Sun thought even further. If Sun Jingyi's boyfriend was really a mystic class master, then if he agreed to marry into House Sun, then House Sun would gain a mystic class master out of thin air. This meant a lot to House Sun. House Sun was a family that focused on healing, so they didn't have any combat masters in the family. It was a good thing to have a combat master. This would bring more benefits than marriage with other families. Yes, he's a mystic class master. Sun Jingyi bit the bullet and said. She was talking about Lin Yi, but Lin Yi actually had nothing to do with her. "If that's the case, then I'll give you a chance. Bring him back to House Sunday. If what you said is true, then let him attend the meeting of the aristocratic families with us. Having a mystic class master is also a good chance for House Sun to show our face." Old Man Sun said, "Of course, the premise is that he must agree to marry into House Sun." "Huh?" Old Man Sun's first condition was enough to put Sun Jingyi in a difficult position. Bring Linny home and to attend the meeting of the aristocratic families? Would Linny agree? Now, she wanted Lin Yi to marry into House Sun Jingyi's family. She might as well just kill Jingyi and be done with it. "What? You're not making it up? Are you?" Old Man Sun heard Sun Jingyi's puzzled voice and frowned. "That's not it. It's fine to meet him, but can it wait? I don't want to make our relationship public for the time being. Besides, he won't agree to marry into House Sun Jingyi's family. After all, he's also a mystic class master," Sun Jingyi said with a bitter face. "I've already given you the chance. This is my bottom line." Old Man Sun said, "If he joins our House Sun, then our House Sun will increase in strength. Then I can still accept it. But if he only marries you, then you'll belong to him. It's better to find a big family to marry into." By underscore slot. Target equals underscore blank. Chapter 1694. I'll try, Sun Jingyi said helplessly. "I'll ask him first. Okay, I'll wait for your news. But if he doesn't agree, or if he's not a mystic class master, then please forget about it." Elder Sun said, "Jingyi, you should know that if I leave, House Sun won't have a good life." I understand." Sun Jingyi sighed. "Dukhank no pop-up window, I'll wait for your news," Elder Sun said. Then, "Grandpa, please take care of yourself." Sun Jingyi suddenly remembered some of her childhood memories. Although her grandpa was a domineering and strict person, although he was a bit of a male chauvinist, he was really good to her. Don't worry, although my body isn't good, I can still hold on for a year or two and watch you guys get married. Elder son said, although her grandpa asking her to marry someone else seemed a bit unreasonable. He gave her a choice. It was much better than those parents who directly decided their children's marriage. But how was Sun Jingyi going to ask Linny? Pretending to be a boyfriend was fine for Wu Qintian, but if she lied to her grandpa, would he be able to see through it? Sun Jingyi was very conflicted. She had no choice but to call Lin Yi. Hello. Not long after Lin Yi helped Qintian increase his strength, Sun Jingyi called. Lin Yi smiled and picked up, looking for the great thief. Lin Yi, I have something urgent to talk to you about. Can you come? Sun Jingyi smiled bitterly. She wasn't in the mood to joke around with Lin Yi. It was too sudden. If Lin Yi didn't agree to go back with her, what would she do? Now, Lin Yi didn't know why Sun Jingyi was looking for him so urgently, but he wanted to calm down and study martial arts. It seemed like he couldn't do that for now. Yes, now, is that okay? Sun Jingyi said anxiously. It's really urgent. Okay. Where are you? I'll be right there. Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi weren't too close, but they were closer than normal friends. It was only because Qintian became Lin Yi's follower and stopped harassing Sun Jingyi that Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi slowly drifted apart. And it's noon. Let me treat you to lunch. We can talk while we eat. I know a Six Taste House. It's a new chain. I heard the food is good, Jingyi asked. It's behind Songshan's first school. You'll see it when you get here. It's a big sign. Okay, I'll go now. Lin Yi replied. Lin Yi put the martial arts book on the table and said goodbye to Meng Yao and Yushu before driving to the Six Taste House. At the entrance of the Six Taste House, Lin Yi saw Sun Jingyi's red Audi A4L. It seemed like Sun Jingyi had arrived before him. Lin Yi parked the car and walked into the Six Taste House. A waiter walked over. Sir, are you alone or do you have a reservation? Before this, did a lady with the surname Sun book a private room? Lin Yi didn't know if Sun Jingyi greeted the waiter or not. May I know your name? Sir? The waiter didn't answer and asked with a smile. My surname is Lin, Lin Yi said. A lady Sun Jingyi booked a private room. Sir, please come with me. The waiter confirmed Lin Yi's identity before saying. Lin Yi nodded and felt that the service of this shop was not bad. The protection of the customers was also quite in place. He followed the waiter to the door of a private room. The waiter made a pleased gesture to Lin Yi and opened the door for Lin Yi. So fast. Sun Jingyi had just arrived, and she was a little surprised to see Lin Yi arrive so soon. You said it was urgent. How can I not be fast? Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why, you're not in a hurry anymore. No, but it's not that it's very urgent. Sun Jingyi was a little embarrassed, but it seems that the call of my lover is still very powerful. Lover? You still have the nerve to say that. When there's something, you treat me as a lover. When there's nothing, you don't even have a phone call. Lin Yi smiled. Moreover, I said that I'm a lover, but I didn't get any benefits at all. Until now, let alone a kiss, we didn't even hold hands. Isn't it a bit too sad? Okay, half a lover. It's just a fake, the kind of nominal. At most, if you make me fall in love with you, I can give you some benefits. Sun Jingyi looked at Lin Yi affectionately and blinked her eyes. Come on, I don't believe it. Don't lie to me. Benefits? Instead of wasting time with you, it's better to go home and hug Tang Yun. Lin Yi shrugged. He didn't fall for Sun Jingyi's temptation at all. I was fooled by you in the past. Do you expect me to be fooled again? In other words, the same trick doesn't work on practitioners. Right? What's your strength now? Sun Jingyi heard Lin Yi mention practitioners. She suddenly thought of something and quickly asked, Why Why are you suddenly asking this? After hearing Sun Jingyi's words, Lin Yi became alert. It wasn't that Lin Yi didn't trust Sun Jingyi, but this was a critical time. The noble house meeting was about to begin. Lin Yi and the people around him had to be kept a secret. Otherwise, if House Yu found a hidden House Yu, it would be troublesome. And Sun Jingyi was from House Sunday. So Lin Yi had to be careful. Although Lin Yi didn't have much contact with Sun Jingyi, his instincts told him that Sun Jingyi wouldn't harm him. He was afraid that Sun Jingyi would be used by other houses. After all, Wu Qintian and Sun Jingyi's relationship was well known. If someone wanted to find out about Wu Qintian, they might start from Sun Jingyi. Lin Yi had to be careful. Of course, it's useful. Just tell me when I ask. Sun Jingyi didn't notice the change in Lin Yi's expression. She flipped through the menu and said, "Isn't it the same as before? Don't you know?" Lin Yi asked, "Mystic? Middle phase?" Jingyi wasn't too sure, since she didn't remember much of it. She was just surprised that Lin Yi was a practitioner as well, since House Sun's training was the unconventional type. Jingyi wasn't as sensitive to the difference in strength levels as other practitioners. And more or less, Lin Yi said ambiguously, "Let's not talk about this. Why did you call me here? Target equals _ blank." Chapter 1695. I heard that the dishes in the House of Six Tastes are all created by the owner himself, and it's said that there aren't more than 6 seasons: soy sauce, vinegar, salt, sugar, MSG, and chili. But the taste is very good, Jingyi said as she introduced the place. This place wasn't here before. It's just a chain. I've been wanting to try it for a long time, but I never had the time. There were too many things to do at the company. Jingyi said as she introduced the place. "You're the Miss of House Sun now. Why are you so tired?" Lin Yi said, "How's the company?" "Right. Wu Qintian has a company that's dying. Do you want to take it over?" "Everything is ready. The only thing missing is a manager." "Miss he. Sun Jingyi's smile was sour, and she changed the topic. "Wu Qintian's company? I can give it to him, but is he willing?" "Him? Didn't he start that company just to put on an act in front of you? Did he want to attract your attention? Now that he's my follower, he doesn't want to do anything to you. So naturally the company is in ruins." Lin Yi said, "It's Xiao family's Xiao Wangba and Xiao Wanggao. Those 2 idiots. Wu Qintian doesn't care." "That's good." Sun Jingyi heard that Qintian was taken in as a follower by Lin Yi, and her eyes flashed with surprise. "Right, I wanted to ask you last time, why did Qintian call you boss? Is it because you're stronger than him?" No matter what, Qintian was still the young master of House Wu. Even if he was crippled, there was no need for him to call a freelancer Lin Yi boss, right? And it seemed that he did it before he was crippled. And the reason he was crippled was because he was protecting Lin Yi's woman? Sun Jingyi felt that this was a little suspicious. Qintian looked a little dumb, but he was an extremely arrogant person. If it wasn't for Lin Yi, he wouldn't have lowered himself to be Qintian's follower, and he wouldn't have protected Lin Yi's woman at the cost of being crippled. Of course, there's another reason. I helped him. Lin Yi didn't lie to Sun Jingyi. He did help Qintian level up. Although Lin Yi was familiar with Sun Jingyi, he still kept his guard up. Their relationship wasn't at the point where they could talk about anything. I see. Jingyi didn't ask much, since she had something important to tell him. She didn't really care about Qintian's situation. Can you pretend to be my boyfriend again?" "I've been pretending, haven't I?" Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "Then, can you come home with me?" Sun Jingyi asked. "What?" Lin Yi's eyes widened, and he almost jumped up. "Go home? With you?" Qintian was crippled, and my grandpa used this reason to cancel the marriage with House Wu, but He still wanted me to marry a man from a noble house, but I told Grandpa that I already have a boyfriend. And he's also a practitioner, a mystic class master. Sun Jingyi briefly told Lin Yi about her conversation with her grandpa. So, Grandpa wants to see you, and he wants you to be his son-in-law. Pfft. Lin Yi spat out a mouthful of tea. Going home with Sun Jingyi was enough of a headache for Lin Yi, and now he wanted to be his son-in-law? What the hell? Ugh, I know this is very difficult for you, but I have no other choice. I'm helpless. Anyway, it's fake. You just have to suffer a little. Sun Jingyi looked at Lin Yi pitifully. I don't believe your expression. You're always fooling people. Lin Yi wiped his mouth and said, From the first time I saw you, you've been fooling me. All right, I'll tell you the truth. This will bring you some trouble, but I really don't have a choice. Jingyi smiled bitterly, a lonely expression on her face. I'm actually an anomaly in House Sun, an outsider. I changed my surname to Sun, but I've never truly assimilated into the Sun family. Grandpa sympathized with my background and treated me very well when I was young, but that made me a thorn in my uncle's side. The eldest son of the direct line of descent didn't get as much love from Grandpa as someone with an outsider surname like me, and so they wanted me to get married a long time ago, using me as a tool to benefit the family. Lin Yi had a rough understanding of Sun Jingyi's background, and seeing her true feelings, he couldn't help but sigh. Your background is very pitiful, but you don't have to pretend in front of me, because I see you as a friend. Yeah, actually, I'm not pretending. Sun Jingyi said, I'm just used to it sometimes, but I can guarantee that what I told you today is the truth. And I'm not fooling you. Then they want you to marry Wu Qintian? Now, they want you to marry someone else, so you use me as a shield? Lin Yi asked. That's it. Sun Jingyi nodded. Then have you ever thought that this isn't a long-term solution? What if it's exposed? I can't always be at your beck and call, right? Lin Yi said, and a son-in-law, even if it's fake, how can I bear it? Whether it's a son-in-law or not, I don't think it's important. Sun Jingyi said, as long as you can make Grandpa approve of you, it's fine. Approve of me. I'm just afraid that after he approves of me, the fake will become real. Lin Yi thought more, because now that Lin Yi was an Earth-class master, if he really showed his strength in front of Grandpa's son, then even if he didn't become a son-in-law, Grandpa's son would probably be willing. But the key problem now was that the relationship between Lin Yi and Sun Jingyi was fake. It wasn't real. You still have confidence. Sun Jingyi smiled and suddenly remembered a very important thing. Right, my grandpa's body doesn't seem to be very good. Can you help him take a look? Yes, but after seeing it, I'm afraid that he will approve of me. What about the future? Have you ever thought about it? Lin Yi asked. The future? Naturally, we'll talk about the future. If it doesn't work, then I'll just marry you. Sun Jingyi smiled. You're tricking me again, Lin Yi said. No, I mean it, Sun Jingyi said. At least compared to those I don't know, I'm familiar with you. Marrying you is better than marrying them. Then what about Tang Yun and Xiao Xiao? Lin Yi asked. I'll be the eldest. And they'll be the second? Sun Jingyi said, no matter what. I'm the eldest miss of House Sun. I can't be the second, right? Target equals _blank. Chapter 1696. Haha. Lin Yi smiled. Maybe you won't say that now that you know Xiao Xiao's identity. Xiao Xiao's identity? Sun Jingyi paused. Her body is very special, and the sect master has taken a liking to her. She's going to be the next master of the Ice Palace. Lin Yi said. What? Jingyi jumped in fright. She'd heard of the Ice Palace before, and vaguely knew about the Ice Palace's trial, but that was too far away for the noble houses. The more distant it was, the more shocked she was. Feng Xiao Xiao was going to be the sect master of the ancient sect. Compared to that, Her identity as the Miss of House Sun was a joke. Plus, Xiao Xiao isn't going to be the main wife. She's still the second wife. Lin Yi said, I was just joking. Sun Jingyi felt a little down, and an awkward smile appeared on her face. Plus, this news from Lin Yi was too much of a shock to her. Xiao Xiao was the future master of the Ice Palace? Keep this a secret. Don't tell anyone. Lin Yi wanted to test Sun Jingyi's character. So he told her something that didn't seem important at the moment. Xiao Xiao's matter didn't affect Lin Yi's plan at all. And even if it got out, the hidden house would be even more worried. But this was something that Lin Yi didn't want to do unless he had to. After all, his own strength was the most important, and using the Ice Palace as an excuse was fine. It was fine to use it once or twice to save his life, but it wouldn't be that useful if it got out. Xiao Xiao was the future master of the Ice Palace, but that was the future. She wasn't the person right now. She was just a golden class early phase, and the future was full of variables. Who knew what it would be like? Moreover, Lin Yi was a person who didn't like to rely on others, especially a heaven stage girl. If Lin Yi always used her name to swindle people outside, then this girl would definitely laugh at him. Don't worry, I understand. I won't say it out loud. Jingyi nodded solemnly. But wouldn't it increase your reputation if I told people about this? Yeah, right? Lin Yi nodded. I don't want to rely on women. Lin Yi didn't explain too much. In fact, Lin Yi didn't mind relying on Xiao Xiao because she was Lin Yi's woman, but Rock Candy was different. Lin Yi didn't want to rely on her. Then you've promised me? Sun Jingyi said. Grandpa said that he wants me to bring you to participate in the aristocratic clan assembly. I was just about to talk about that. I wanted to wait until after the aristocratic clan assembly, but since you're going too, then that's perfect. Perhaps you'll see me there. Lin Yi said, I'll go with someone else to the aristocratic clan assembly as well. Someone else? Wu Qintian? Sun Jingyi asked, and Lin Yi nodded. That's fine. Then we'll meet at the aristocratic clan assembly. Sun Jingyi breathed out in relief, as if a wish had been fulfilled. But you don't have to worry too much. As long as Grandpa's illness is cured, then I'll be at ease. When I leave House Sun, there won't be too much pressure. Oh, you're planning to leave House Sun? Lin Yi looked at Sun Jingyi's disappointed face and couldn't help but ask. He wasn't someone who liked to meddle in other people's business, but he liked to meddle in the business of his friends. And this time, if it wasn't for Grandpa saying that his body wasn't too good recently and that he might not be able to hold on for long, I wouldn't have agreed to this. Sun Jingyi said sadly, sigh, I haven't been back to House Sun for almost 2 years. Who'll be in charge of House Sun in the future? Is it your brother Sun Yikai or your uncle's son? Lin Yi suddenly asked, and Sun Jingyi paused, not knowing why Lin Yi would ask such a question, but she still said that's not for sure. Until now, Grandpa hasn't said anything about letting Uncle or Uncle take over House Sun. Then I understand, said Lin Yi faintly. If Sun Yikai takes over House Sun, will you be happier and have less pressure? And he has a good relationship with me since we were young, said Sun Jingyi, but I still want to leave House Sunday. After this matter is over, I want to go back to my hometown and see my parents' former residence. Although it's probably ruined, I still want to go and have a look. I understand. My impression of Sun Yikai is also good. Lin Yi nodded. He already had a plan in his heart. If the Sun family's old man was sensible and let Sun Yikai inherit House Sun, then in this family meeting, Lin Yi would let House Sun keep its position. As for other families that weren't close to Lin Yi, he would just let them get lost. Do you have time at that time? Can you accompany me? Sun Jingyi didn't know why she suddenly asked this question. She didn't mean anything else. She just felt a little lonely, especially when she was going far away. If there was a companion, it would be a lot more relaxing. She had almost no real friends, except Lin Yi. Let's talk about it then. Lin Yi saw Sun Jingyi's loneliness, so he didn't directly refuse. Okay, that's a promise. You can't shirk it at that time. Sun Jingyi's eyes flashed a trace of slyness. When did I promise? Lin Yi was stunned. Then you didn't promise? Sun Jingyi asked back. Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm afraid I won't have time. If I have time, I'll accompany you. Time's like, it's just a squeeze. Jingyi said. Then squeeze for me? Lin Yi's eyes unconsciously moved to Sun Jingyi's collar. I don't need to squeeze, but if you want to see, not now. I'll show you when you become an official lover. Sun Jingyi said. Then I won't look. I have a big chest at home. I can look anytime. Lin Yi said. Pervert. Sun Jingyi said. Me? Pervert? Lin Yi pointed at his nose, not sure if he should laugh or cry. This was the first time someone called him a pervert. He didn't seem to be very perverted. After lunch, Lin Yi returned to House Chu's villa. While Yu Qian, Ling Shan, and Chen Tian were getting ready, he started practicing the technique Faubert gave him. At the same time, the heads of the noble houses brought their disciples to Yanjing, where House Yu was to attend the noble house meeting. Of course, the most active was House Kong. Target equals _ blank. Chapter 1697. Dr. Kong had heard about what happened between House Song and House Chen. From what he could see, House Song might not be able to do much in this noble house meeting, but House Chen would definitely be removed from the list of noble houses. And so, Dr. Kong brought Kong Guifeng to Yanjing's House Yu as soon as he could, preparing to discuss the matter of becoming a noble house with House Yu. Becoming a member of a noble house had always been Dr. Kang's dream, and this was a chance for House Kong. Dr. Kong was determined to get it. In the reception hall of House Yu, Shueisheng received Dr. Kong and Kong Guifeng. This isn't the first time we've met, and I know why you two are here. Shueisheng looked at Dr. Kong and Kong Guifeng, not beating around the bush. But if you two want to become a noble house, shouldn't you show some sincerity? That, naturally, we won't let House Yu help us for nothing. We, House Kong, will become the strongest supporter of House Yu in the future. Plus, our Dr. Kong Medical Group's sales network will be given to House Yu after the agency contract expires. Kong Guifeng said. This was the chip he'd thought of a long time ago, and it was the only chip House Kong could take out right now. That, isn't it a bit too little? Shueisheng said. Mr. Kong, support is just empty words. As for the sales network, as far as I know, with Miracle Dr. Guan's company's competition, your company's sales have been declining. I don't think there's much profit to be made. Right? That Kong Guifeng's face reddened. Indeed, what Shueisheng said was Kong Guifeng's weakness, but House Kong didn't have many chips. With Miracle Dr. Guan's company's competition, House Kong was no longer the same as before. They didn't have money, and they didn't have good products. Even if House Kong became a noble house, they wouldn't have the advantage they had at the auction. Ahem. Dr. Kong was an old fox. He coughed and lowered his voice. Since House Yu says so, then I'll give you a piece of news. But since House Kong wants to become a strong supporter of House Yu, then Mr. Yu, please don't betray us. Oh, what is it? Shueisheng's interest was piqued by Dr. Kang's mysterious words. Recently, House Kong has been researching the recipe for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, and I believe we'll have progress very soon. Once we succeed, then House Kang's position. I'm sure you understand. House Yu, Dr. Kong said. I can guarantee that all the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing made in the future will be given to House Yu first. What do you think of this bargaining chip? House Yu. So you're saying that it's not done yet? Shueisheng was quite cool. He didn't let Dr. Kang's words get to his head. Naturally, it's not that difficult, but it takes a lot of effort. Dr. Kong didn't hide anything. House Yu you should know that we're the ones asking you to work with us now. But once the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing is made, it'll be the other noble houses that come looking for us. Shueishin wasn't an idiot. He understood what Miracle Dr. Kong was saying, but this was a gamble. House Kong was researching the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, but how confident they were and whether or not they'd succeed was still unknown. Of course, Shueishin understood that House Kong was more eager to research the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing than he was, and that the news wasn't necessarily made up. House Kong was currently under the influence of Miracle Dr. Guan's company and was in a slump. If they didn't have a hit product, they wouldn't be able to hold on for long even if they became a noble house. This time, however, House Chen's removal from the noble house list was irreversible. Even if House Chen had a fake marriage with the ancient sect, it wouldn't stop Shueishin from making a move. Yu Feng had caused trouble this time, and House Yu would be in the wrong if they didn't get rid of him. It'd be better for them to just kill House Chen so that they wouldn't be able to rise again. As for House Song, Shueishin would have to see Xiangwen's attitude. If he was willing to marry Lingshan to him, then he'd pretend that nothing had happened. If not, then House Song would be in danger. As for House Wu and House Lu, while House Wu had news of Wu Qintian being crippled, and House Lu didn't have any practitioners, they were still related by marriage. Shueishin didn't want to touch them this time, in case he caused a backlash. Plus, with so many empty seats, it wouldn't be easy to replace them with other noble houses. If there were too many empty seats, the position of a noble house wouldn't be valuable anymore. Only by having one or two empty seats every time could the qualified houses fight for it. And it would also highlight the importance of House Yu. Looking at the current situation, House Kong seemed to be a suitable candidate, and they'd even made a friendly gesture. After a moment of contemplation, Shueishin nodded. All right, then I'll help House Kong become a noble house this time, but I'll have to warn you up front. If you don't have a worthy product for a long time, then House Kang's future will be a bit worrying. We understand that, of course. Dr. Kong nodded. We'll do our best. All right, the noble house meeting. You guys come as well and cooperate with me when necessary. I'll remove House Qin from the noble house list and let you replace them. Shueishin said. All right, I understand. Don't worry, House Yu will follow your footsteps. Kong Guifeng said quickly. All right, see you then. Shueishin said as he picked up his teacup. Dr. Kong and Kong Guifeng, on the other hand, weren't blind people. They knew that Shueishin was sending them off and quickly stood up. Then we won't disturb you any further. House Yu will be on time for the noble house meeting. And Lil Feng, send House Kong off for me. Shueishin said to Yu Feng, who was standing behind him, Elder Kong, Mr. Kong, please. Yu Feng said politely to Dr. Kong, but his mind was on Lingshan. He didn't know if Elder Song Xiangwen had made a decision yet. Yu Feng was like that. The more he couldn't get his hands on something, the more he wanted to get his hands on her. It wasn't that Lingshan was the most beautiful person in the noble houses. There were girls with similar looks and backgrounds as her, such as House Lu's Lu Jinghan and House Sun's Sun Jingyi. Of course, there were a few girls who weren't as pretty but were still from noble houses. But after seeing Lingshan, Yu Feng felt a sense of conquering. The more she refused, the more he wanted to get his hands on her. Target =_blank that you're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.